Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, regular meeting for March 13th, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have someone here for public audience, and I'm going to set my timer. And if you'd like to come up, but please stop when the time's up.
John Code 26 Whitcomb Drive. Now that Town Manager Maria Capriola has resigned, we can look to the past to gain insight into our future. The Charter Revision Commission voted for a professional town manager to become the CEO of Simsbury. The pool of applicants for the position was not of the highest quality, and instead of continuing the process, the Board of Selectmen chose Maria Capriola as the first town manager for Simsbury. After several months as the CEO, the Board of Selectmen was aware of many of the highly recognized professional staff resigning their positions for employment elsewhere, a loss for Simsbury. This was the first red flag. Instead of trying to address the problem, many members of the board gave cover to town manager Maria Capriola with excuses for poor performance, another red flag. The hiring of replacement employees was in many cases of lesser quality and created more red flags. The planning department had professional employees working together harmoniously until town manager hired a code compliance officer that was a train wreck and destroyed the department's cohesiveness. A Hartford Current article described Capriola's abuse of power, vindictiveness, favoritism, and decline in morale. Allegedly, Capriola asking management to change a job evaluation from excellent to poor, another red flag. A letter from the business community alerting the Board of Selectmen they were concerned about the lack of communication with Town Manager Maria Capriola and the board's lack of oversight in the management of Capriola's performance, another red flag. A recent article in the Hartford Current, quote, Capriola's first town manager resigning from post, end quote. Selectman Eric Wellman stated, Maria is the most ethical, hardworking people I had the pleasure to work with, end quote. This coming from a person who allegedly lied to the press in the town and has been the go-to guy for town manager Maria Capriola. The article states Selectman Sean Askham praised Capriola. Selectman Askham has defended Capriola, knowing the backstory to many events, stating that Maria has always made him look smart, giving information directly to him. Selectman Askham represented town manager Maria Capriola, not always in the town's interest, with a pretext of getting reelected. Town manager Maria Capriola's brought performance of town planner George McGregor was a complete farce. All categories were superior, although from the onset McGregor's tenure there were issues involving competence being questioned on a daily basis from staff, boards and commissions, and the business community. The immediate exorcism of deputy town planner was allegedly as a result of McGregor's incompetence. Town manager Maria Capriola appears to be living in a fantasy world. Town manager Maria Capriola has used a job performance mechanism to create a false narrative about McGregor's ability and has denigrated past employees' performance. I have recently received my assessment from the town after revaluation. A letter of the assessor was given my last statement and my present and my assessment, which was increased from last year. Another letter followed with another amount of my assessment. This appears to be a townwide mailing resulting in fluctuations in the grand list. It is alleged that a business assessment was lowered by $1 million. Over 50 years of assessments of the town, this is the first year I received an amended assessment questioning the models that he used to develop the assessment. The assessor is another Capriola's hire, leading to another red flag to add to the town manager Maria Capriola's competence. Looking forward, the selection of a town manager will be of utmost importance for staff and the taxpayers of Simsbury. There are many headhunters with expertise in the selection of town managers, and the Board of Selectmen should use as consultants. The Novak Consulting Group is now Raptorless, a group out of Ohio, is someone to consider. Attached is the phone number and email of the highly recommended company, which I get put on my posting. I recently won a Freedom of Information complaint against Chief Bolter on redactions of addresses on arrests in violation of Freedom of Information Act 1215, Section 115, formerly 120, record of an arrest of public record, prohibition on reaction. The negotiated settlement that challenged the redaction by Chief Bolter will result in providing the addresses on arrests that I requested and going forward to provide addresses on case incident reports and arrest logs on public documents. Public access to arrest records will have the names and addresses on the documents requested. Chief Bolter should follow the law, not impose his values to interpret the law. And all of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter at Joan Cohen, Facebook. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If I may.
Sure.
Thank you. You know, I've been sitting here for 5 years listening to Joan slander our town staff and member elected officials. And look, you know, people can come up here and say what they want about us. We're elected. The bar is, I think, a lot lower. But if you're going to say something about the staff that serve our town, you better make sure that you've got your facts straight. And if any resident has any concerns about past Hartford Current articles about our town manager or anybody else, I genuinely invite you to reach out to me because those articles are based on half-assed reporting. I have the highest regard for our town staff and our department heads and all of those who serve our residents. And I'm just afraid that if this board takes this stuff quietly, really good people are going to leave. And, you know, Joan, you've been talking about a morale problem in Town Hall for years. The morale problem is you. The morale problem is your never-ending FOIA requests. I'm not going to say any more, but I'm just not going to. I'm not going to take this quietly anymore.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to have a first selectmen's report, and I had written a statement in regard to Town Manager Maria Capriola's resignation that I'd like to read. On behalf of the town of Simsbury, I want to thank Simsbury Town Manager Maria Capriola for her more than 5 years of service and wish her well in her new position. As the first town manager following the charter revision change in Simsbury's form of government, Ms. Capriola was critical in helping the town staff and the volunteers on all boards and commissions through this transition. As our form of government evolves, we will learn from each experience and find ways to build on the level of service and commitment we provide to our residents and businesses. As we begin our search for a new town manager, I know that we are all committed to finding an experienced leader with a vision for our town that will bring Simsbury into the future. We have a great town leadership team, many of you guys are here tonight, in place that will help through this transition so that we can continue to provide the highest level of service from our dedicated town staff. Whatever we can do to support our valued employees during this time, we will do. We are already at work to find an interim town manager and to set up an executive search committee. As this is happening during our very important budget sessions, rest assured we will stay focused on these important tasks for our employees, residents, and businesses. And the rest of what I have here is just a summary. I wanted to thank the Chamber for the Business Leaders Breakfast this week, where we had the Governor of Connecticut who came and spoke with all of our local business leaders. And then a reminder on the CROG Multi-Trail event coming up at the end of the month, and a couple other updates. And that's all I have. Skip the town manager.
One was sent to you guys.
Oh.
It'll be posted on.
Okay, okay. Great. So if people have any board and commission updates they'd like to share tonight?
I have one. So the public hearing on the 830G property application at 446 Hopmoto Street. Their zoning will be having a public hearing on that on Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. At the library, and Inland Wetlands is continuing their public hearing from last week on it. That'll be March 21st at 7:30 p.m. at the high school.
Thank you. John?
Nothing.
I just have a brief notice that Cheese Day tomorrow has been canceled and they're working on rescheduling because of the impending storm.
No. Chris, nothing? Okay, so we're getting into selectmen action. So I was wondering if I could kind of make a motion to move some things around so that we end on the budget discussion and then can move forward to executive session. Would everybody be okay with that? And as some other boards do, can we start with the review of the minutes? Did anybody have any changes to the minutes? No? Okay. Then it's off the list. So in the selectmen action, let's do the tax refund requests. We can move effective March 13th, 2023 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $3,614.70 and to authorize town manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refunds.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then I'd like to move C up to B so that we could talk about the town manager executive search committee. As we move forward on this mission to find an interim town manager and a future town manager, we need to have in place an executive search committee. And at this point in time, we all feel the full board should be on this committee to make recommendations and be part of the process. So I'm going to move effective March 13th, 2023 to appoint the Simsbury Board of Selectmen as the executive search committee to identify a successor town manager.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Can we do appointments too? I'm gonna, just want to get this out of the way.
No objection.
So let's do the appointments to various boards. So if the board accepts the recommended appointments, we're gonna move effective March 13th to appoint Eric Peterson as a regular member of the Culture, Parks and Rec Commission with a term ending January 1st, 2026. Move effective March 13th to appoint Margaret Halderman as a regular member of the Aging and Disability Commission with a term ending January 2027. Move effective March 13th, 2023 to appoint Libby Easton May as an alternate member of the Aging and Disability Commission with a term ending January 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all their information is attached in the packet if anyone is interested. And then there's a couple communications items. There's the update on the work group. I don't know, Tom, if you want to give that, but I can give it also. So we had set up a work group in September to look into public smoking. We're concerned about smoking in public because the cannabis was going to be effective in January, and to come up with an ordinance to prohibit tobacco, vaping, and cannabis products on public property. I believe that we're not able to start this work group at this time. Okay. Okay, so does anyone have any concerns about the risk of any smoking? I know there's a state law. I don't know what it prohibits, but just that we know that this is whatever people want to do, I guess they potentially could do. And that there's a, Tom, did you have something to say on your memo? About your household hazardous waste? Did you want to plug that?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's 3 times a year, it's free service.
Okay.
Starts this year in Farmington.
Okay, so I think we've knocked everything off the list.
Could I just go back to the smoking in public? I think the words for Selectman's mouth. I think we're going to table it because of a ranking of priorities from town staff and this board. So I just want to make sure, be clear as to why we've come to that decision. I think also that we're making the assumptions that common sense will continue to prevail relative to the use of tobacco products on public, on town-owned property. And we would certainly imagine that's going to continue, but we will be addressing it in due time in a proper manner. So that's what I wanted to make sure is known and said.
Okay, thank you. So now we're back to where we were on Saturday, but Monday night at 6:15. So we're gonna resume our budget discussion and pick up where we left off. Did people want to go over any of the questions that Tom provided? And Amy provided us with some answers to questions we had on Monday. I'm not going to read them.
I just had one question about the electric chargers. I don't know if you were able to get down to what those are actually projected to cost us.
$2,750.
A piece.
In terms of the annual electricity.
Yeah.
Out here, this one here, which again is slower than some of the new ones, is $2,750. Ballpark per year.
Okay.
So if we did 4 of them, it's roughly 10 grand.
roughly 10 grand, and if they are faster chargers or they get more use, they may use more electricity.
And safe to say that we would be investing in units that are faster. By nature of just being 5 years newer, even the slow new ones are gonna be faster than the fast old ones.
Where I recommend, I believe it's a level 2 charger, where it's not the rapid chargers. The rapid chargers use significant amount of commercial electricity in order to charge a car very quickly. And I don't think that would necessarily be in line with what we're trying to do. The other thing is there is the ability to have an app and a setup where you can charge for electricity if you choose to.
So safe to model twice the cost as one single one now. So across 4, so to 20 grand. Is that a fair statement?
No, that system with both heads is the 2750.
On the slow side, though.
On the slow side, right. So
if you buy
faster
more modern
ones,
version of that with 2 heads,
and they
it's
get more
twice as
use.
it times
Yep.
4, it's 20, which is
Yep.
like rough. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
So I think we left off, I think we're into the capital CNR debt service section. And what we can do is, as we go along, I think, Chris, I just saw your email. You know, depending on how deep we get into this, find a place where we can stop so that make sure we can finish all of our decision-making on Wednesday, but at least have a good place to resume for Wednesday night. So just kind of keep a pulse on where we are and where we need to stop. So let's go to tab. Who's going to run the section?
So I guess, do you want to see our slides? They're somewhat basic and more kind of discussion based. We can go through them and if you find them useful, we can click through them, but more, I think, feel like discussion at this point.
On the capital stuff, correct? Yeah. You can start with CIP or CNR. This says 27, so.
Like,
Anybody have a preference?
CIP.
Okay, CIP it is.
Too high, Tom. Cut it.
Oh, that's the one.
I mean, aren't we following the agenda? I mean, doesn't the agenda lay out our?
We already did the board. We already did the board of
Yeah,
ed,
it
right?
does. We're on capital CNR and
Yeah,
debt
so
service.
So I'm just saying we don't have to ask where it is. That's right. It's
Yeah.
So I guess, well, do we have questions on individual items that we want to go over? We're just going to look at the bottom line, see if there's anything we want to.
So what I would suggest is
Around?
we focus on a couple of areas, which I think will inform our discussion, right?
Sure.
We've got funds that cost the taxpayer money now, funds that cost the taxpayer money later, and funds that never cost the taxpayer money, right? So I think hopefully we can leave out the grants, potentially the Parks and Rec Fund, although I think we need to look at the solvency there, but that's potentially separate. Town Aid Road, LoSiP, those are for intents and purposes off the table for now, unless there's something that folks want to tell us for moving projects around within that. But within bonds, obviously, I think it's our most important, and I think followed closely by that ARPA and then the capital reserve money. And again, my philosophy, and again, everybody can decide what they want, is that ARPA is not free money. It's money that should be used to help the community, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. So I think we should continue to prioritize projects that were already in scope and already part of the plan, and not necessarily new ideas unless those rise to the level of a top priority. And again, I love new and creative ideas, but this is not the same thing as a specific grant that we get from the state or the feds for a specific bike trail or a specific item. And again, I'm not picking on any project in general, but I think, $389,000 could offset, a portion of those bonds. It could also offset a portion of the capital reserve, or we could, the capital reserves, donations, operating transfers, which would leave us additional capacity in future years. as we continue to run up against that 8% number. And we know there's no shortage of capital items. The additional challenge I would put out for everybody to think about is I think we've got a good handle on our short and midterm capital, and the whole town has a good idea of the long term. Our Board of Ed partners have articulated to us that their CNR funds are not sufficient for their short and midterm capital needs, and I think they have, as Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a pretty substantial schedule that our Board of Ed partners have as well, and we need to be potentially reserving town-wide capital, meaning Board of Ed and town, for those folks in the future as well, for those smaller items, where I don't think we have a lot of flexibility in the coming years to deal with those items. And what might be a good idea now would be a shame to cost us a plow, cost us, a critical item at a school that we would have to do, and then stretch further our debt issues. So if we could, I would love to go through the ARPA list first and foremost.
Sure.
And if we like it, if we agree with it, I think we leave it. And again, I think we need to be bold enough to potentially strike items, and that will then inform whether these stay here as ARPA or do we transfer those funds to other projects, if that works for you guys.
That's for sure.
Yes, sir, Tom.
Can you blow that up, Tom? I'm too old to see that. Thank you.
And I guess as we jump into ARPA, the first thing on the list is the Eno Memorial Hall HVAC for $1.2 million. Oh, I think we just lost it. It's up here at the top. On our CIP schedule, that is the 389,440 is showing up this year, which I assume is some maybe design work. It looks like it's like 10. Okay, right. And then the entire project is scheduled to hit next year at about 3.9. So I assume this $1.2 million is just, I think that was the HVAC portion that we decided last year to use the ARPA funds to offset for the HVAC part of the Eno Hall reno, because that fit with some of the intent allowable uses under ARPA, because it had to do with the air handling and air quality issues.
And I'm very good at talking about the Eno project in terms of what was pulled out for ARPA. That wasn't necessarily my decision. And I think now most of this is eligible for ARPA, where back then I know we were trying to parse out, and there was some.
Right.
Remember,
But
there's no
it
eligibility
seems like
anymore.
we're not, even though on the CIP, the whole thing says ARPA, I think based on this schedule, we are really only allotting $1.2 million. I mean, the whole second tranche is only 3.7. That would, the project, if we used ARPA for that whole project, that would be the only thing we would be able to do. So I'm just kind of clarifying, and I guess trying to revisit what we talked about last year to make sure that's kind of what's going on with the Eno Hall project, that we're using a total of $1.2 million of ARPA money for that. Still going to be primarily just the HVAC portion. The 389 for this fiscal year is the design work that I think is that being covered by ARPA? The design work?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Or bond.
Is it allocated as ARPA in the CIP? I'm really curious, but I don't see it on this list.
Well, it's at the top, the Eno Hall HVAC for $1.2 million.
Right, the 389,000 says ARPA and under.
That's what I'm
So are
talking
they
about.
combined? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm saying, is that in the CIP, there's 10% of the whole project for design work this year, and then 3.894 next year. But I think and it says only ARPA, but I think we're really only using $1.2 million of ARPA.
Right, so the ARPA is for the 389,440 for the design work in fiscal year 24, and then in fiscal year 25, that 3.8, 3,083,000 is bonds, and then 810,000 is ARPA.
Okay.
So that's how you get to the 1.2.
Okay.
So can we take a step back? So all of this is non-committed, right? This is the 3.7?
Right.
We haven't committed a dime of that yet, right?
we have.
Of the
Is it
of the current tranche? We committed the
Well,
first tranche.
I saw wasn't the outdoor playscape listed on here for Latimer?
The outdoor learning space.
Yeah, or we did, yeah, whatever, playscape. Yeah, so we already approved that.
So what on this list is approved and what is up for debate?
I think the $1.2 million we approved.
But let's not do the thing. Let's make sure we know what it is, because there's two tranches. There was the
Right.
3.7 last year, the
Right.
3.7 this year. So what I want to know is, do I have 3.7 to spend this year? And I know there's a whole big plan, which we could throw out the window and spend the whole 3.7 this year if we wanted to.
So you have the full 3.7. So last year in the budget, you committed 3,165,000, and then we did supplemental appropriations of 350, for a total of 3.515 in ARPA. So then for this year, you have your full second tranche of 3.7, and that's what's being allocated to the
And
3.7.
that number there, so we did 10 allocations of 350,000 essentially to get to the 3.1 for 9, is that what you're?
Well, it was various capital and CNR projects.
Oh, I
to
thought
get
you
to
said they were
3.1.
each 350.
No,
No, they added up to 3.5. We actually have 200,000 left from last year.
you do.
Which I think was being earmarked for the business.
Earmark doesn't
I
matter.
know, but I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
saying, I
great.
think that was the intent for the remaining part of tranche 1, but again, I
That
think
puts
that's.
3.9 on the table here.
But that's what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
So none of the Eno project is committed at this point from an appropriation standpoint, right? So we have 3.9 million of unallocated capital right now outside of outside of the taxpayers' dollars.
Right.
So I think that's really important. And I know there's a plan, but this is where philosophically we need to decide, do we defer bonds now to save folks in the long run, or do we think that bond rates are gonna go up? Therefore, it's actually better to bond more now and let the capital flow through to later years to defer bonding in the future. I think we need to, and we don't need to answer that right this second, but as we're deciding these projects, I think we have to have that in the back of our head, because the more bonds we defer now, the more we may actually incur additional borrowing costs in the future. So I think we need to think about that conceptually.
One thing I would add to that is it would be nice to just stop talking about ARPA and use it, and then just talk about capital reserves, because it's really the same money.
Well,
So
I
we
mean, that's
can-
fair. We
if
can
we can
just transfer it to the capital reserve fund too, right? I mean, there's a lot we can do with it.
So that's what we did for the last tranche. I think essentially, when we use it as revenue loss, it's just extra money. It's going in the capital reserve fund, but we've just broken it out as ARPA themed, if you will, because it was the choice of this board to use that money
Good try.
in the spirit of ARPA.
Fair enough.
In the spirit.
Yep.
Which I think we should restate to a certain extent, possibly. I know that you guys did millions of hours of work trying to get to, but I think holistically, the way that I think about it is health and welfare of the citizenry and in totality versus as much as we can to a totality versus a small cohort. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about how we work with this now.
Agreed. So to that end, the stuff in yellow is this all current year?
Yes.
These are all current year requests?
No, I thought the dams were out years.
Yeah, there's a bunch of,
Yeah.
Well,
there's like the millions, yeah. So, yeah, this chart's confusing, because like $1,000,000 to,
The House Rest Dam and the Lake Bazile,
The seal.
Bazile is out years.
Yeah, 26, 28.
so that's the
So I
dam
guess we
program.
decide if we wanna, that's another decision point, do we wanna hold the money like you just said for those, or use it for stuff now that we might get some bang for, and then use reserves later on? if
Well,
have
we have to do the dams at some point, right? So it's a matter of when do we pay for it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't have to pay for it now if it's not gonna be done for 3 to 5 years.
Correct.
So why don't we,
So in relative to the dams, John, that's another conversation. Are we repairing the dams or are we reaching the dams? It's a whole other cost structure. Statement.
Whatever's cheaper is what I want to do.
What is the plan?
Stoddard Dam is to be breached.
Correct, but I think there was a conversation at some point of the consideration of replacing. I think we start to need to be clear and say.
It was roughly 3 times the cost.
Yeah. Yeah, we killed that.
Nice to have, but.
Right, I think we should just be changing the tense of the conversation, how we say it.
so do we wanna go through this list and kind of give a,
So I think we do, but Amy, I need you to true up that 1.2, because that 1.2 is not showing up in the current fiscal year as a spend, or the current budget year as a spend.
yeah, so it's
So it's the 389.
389, it's 10% of the.
and then in fiscal year 25, it's
Okay.
it's
So to be
1.1.
clear, are we approving the 1.2 appropriation this year?
Yeah, so essentially you're approving the project with the ARPA funding.
But how does that work? Because we're not approving the 3.8. Right, we're only approving a portion of it.
Right, so essentially you're just putting it in capital reserve until it's time to spend it.
I guess my point is, what happens if we don't approve the rest of that money next year? Now we've got dead money against a project we're not doing. Right, but why would we, I guess, what would be the advice as to why to allocate it this year if we're not doing the rest of the money?
Essentially, you're just committed to doing the project.
Yeah, but so then we're hamstringing ourselves next year that we have to pay for it.
So we could essentially just do the design, the 389.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is we should only approve the 389 this year. And if we want to transfer whatever's left over into the capital reserve fund, so be it, but I don't think we should commit next year's board to spending on ARPA.
I think we should look at this year's ARPA spend.
Yeah,
And then
that's what I'm driving at.
Whatever's not spent goes into capital reserves, and then when we need it later, we'll
Yeah.
pull it from capital reserves.
All right. Does that make sense for everybody, moving that to 3.9? Tom, what are you doing, bud? Jeez.
I mean, I would say that one of the suggestions Maria had that we could consider is also putting some of the money to the health insurance reserve.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get there.
Okay. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
she was doing that with what was left over from the money instead of putting it in capital reserves.
Yeah, it's on there too, so we'll be able to.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So we can talk about whether or not we want to fund some into the health insurance reserve and in the capital reserve.
Fair enough. Okay, I understand your point now.
Would
Yes,
that be
yeah,
a
yes, I
funding or
do.
a placeholder?
We'd move that.
It did say place, or it would be contingent, because we don't know if we need it right now. So that's another question for Amy. The 600 in the health reserves, depending on where we end up, it's a placeholder. Wouldn't we potentially have year-end savings that we would know where we stood at that point in time that we could use for that?
No, well, for fiscal year '23, we would have year-end savings, but for fiscal year '24, we're not gonna know until the end of fiscal year '24.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's really a policy decision from the Board of Finance standpoint, that we can make a recommendation, but I believe the chairwoman said that they were considering using year-end savings from this year to true up the fund. Yeah, I mean, it's, the 600 comes from somewhere, right? So, okay, either we're not getting that for cash to capital, it's not going as a reserve contribution, or it's going in as reserves, okay. So can we change that 1.2 to 3.89, please? So we can keep a list of what we're actually,
Yeah.
add this to the list of why I hate PowerPoint. All right, I think we all beat the book vending machine up pretty hard on Saturday.
My thoughts on the vending machine, I think it's a great idea, but I think that it should be postponed because we have our planning department who is doing a 3-year Terrifill study that they'll be starting. And I think that study on Terrifill will give us an idea of what Terrifill envisions for themselves and what they would like. And I'd rather find that out first, because perhaps maybe there's something for $75,000 that comes forward in that study that shows that residents there, would really like such and such. I just think, Ann, you mentioned about using it as a pilot for a library, but I'm hoping that study, the planning department, will also allow us to see things like that. So, that's a $50,000 spent over the next 3 years, and $150 spent over the next 3 years. But if that, but I just think that is almost 2/3 of the cost of the study of the equipment. And so I was thinking perhaps delaying to really see what that study shows us.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the vending machine right now to invest in a new products that may require maintenance, given the potential year that we're looking at. I was gonna focus more on like key items and current projects, so I would be good with that.
I think the vending machine's a really neat concept, and I'm so glad that you brought this to us, Lisa, but I have to agree that with the other challenges that we have, that one has to go on the back burner right now.
It's again, the libraries, to me, when I think about this town, I think next to the PAC, it's like you and the PAC are two just identity pillars for us. You have fantastic library as it is, but I know quite often, the distance from Terrifil is cited as part of the conversation, the narrative, and all. And there's no doubt that that exists, but there are certainly residents in this town who are further from this library than the residents of Terrifil are too. So there is many people have equal access and distance and all. And I as we've talked about in the past, this is something that's new, and we have to be conscious of the consequences down the road of adding new services, because that means that has to be a plan for a support model. And we have so much that we're looking at today on this budget that is supporting existing infrastructure, and we got to knock that off first versus adding to the list. Even though there's a host of valid reasons for it. It's a hard decision. That's what we're here for.
Can I just speak to the access
Of course.
in Terrifil? When we speak about the access in Terrifil and equitable access, many of the folks that live in Terrifil, there's the socioeconomic access that we're talking about. And those folks in Terrifil are the people that don't use the library partially because of their standing socioeconomically. And those are the people that we're trying to.
No, I don't doubt, but
I just wanted to clarify.
I know that we certainly have a housing community in this town that is not centrally located, and those folks are probably by and large could be in the same conversation, the narrative about socioeconomics. So there's pockets of people all over it. It's an imperfect mousetrap to try to solve for.
And I think the Books to Your Door program is a nice, somewhat solution that allows access to people, access for residents to the library with that delivery system and pickup.
Gives access to people who are elderly or physically unable to come to the library for physical reasons, not.
Well, another point, if we fund which we haven't talked about, the literacy program, there will be delivery to Terrifil with that book bike
Correct.
for people to access, and that could be a way to monitor the amount of
Correct.
impact it has.
Right.
Yep.
Great point.
Do you think there could be an opportunity to provide the professional development money that never actually got into your request? But it's if I recall, was it about $2,500?
It was $2,000.
I'd be in favor of adding that in. And I understand these things aren't equivalent, but I think it's important to show our staff that we're investing in their continued education.
Well, and I think, as you recall, on Saturday, I said that was the broccoli on my plate as opposed to the icing on my cupcake.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense to fund something that's critical for your department.
Where do we stand with funding increased funds for children's programs?
Circulation.
Because that's also another smaller ask.
Yeah.
It's like $2,400.
Right.
I would be in favor of both of those.
Same here.
It was the team.
No, it was
And the
children's programs. I think it was 4,200, 4,500.
Yeah.
So she added the Robbins.
Again,
It
that goes back to the spirit of holistic, we make these decisions, are we making them holistically in the sense of how many people are they really serving?
It's
Versus-
4,250. Yeah.
To be clear, are we talking about capital or operating?
Operating.
Those would be operating, but I just bring it up because we're talking about the library.
All right.
Yeah, broccoli on the library as opposed to icing on the cupcake.
All right, so can you guys put that on the wish list? Respectfully, guys, if we spend 10 minutes on every item, we're gonna be here till in December, so let's keep moving.
Okay, but I just want to get down for these guys. We're potentially adding the 4,250 I'm not looking at it, for the children's,
Yeah, no,
2,000 for the,
These guys will put it on the wish
and then there was the teen ask.
Yeah,
right?
but that
Teen
one's already.
materials. Is that baked in
One
already?
of the it's one of the requests though that was.
Service improvement.
Yeah.
Right,
Tom, you
and
have
that's
it?
4,500.
Tom's got it.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so we have two new
We'll
service
do it.
improvements
And then
added
the
to the
2,000
service
from
improvement.
professional development.
Yeah.
All right, so on the dams, these dams are in 25, 26, 26, 27, and then Stoddard's 25, 26, and then 27, 28. My opinion is these should not be appropriated now.
Agreed.
If we want to reserve funds for these, we stick them in capital reserves, but I don't think we should be making appropriations, especially when there's a much larger number for the Stoddard Dam in 27, 28. So I think these ought to come off. And we can have that philosophical, do we put them in capital reserves?
If they're left over, we
If they're left
and
over,
then
yeah.
they'll be there when we need them later on.
Yeah.
So we don't have to spend it now.
I'm okay with taking them off.
Same here.
Me too.
So 0? Yeah, 0 the 2 dams out, because neither of these are in the current fiscal year that we're debating.
They go directly towards taxpayer dollar costs.
We can still placeholder them by putting them in capital reserves, but I don't think we should approve the appropriations in this fiscal year. Latimer, I think we basically already committed to, right?
Already committed, yeah.
Yep. And then, again, I'll go first. I'm not in support of the town tourism map for $60,000.
No,
Again, we funded a lot of literature in this town, and I think you can use your phone and the visitor center, and I don't feel like that's a good program to invest at this point in time.
again, and that's under my mantra of health and welfare and a small user cohort. I know that there's 1,000 there's probably 100 reasons to do it, but it's not broad enough for me. So it's just a hard decision. It's not, they don't like the project. It's just a hard decision.
Yeah, I agree. At one point, I considered maybe a prototype, but I would be in favor of not doing it at all.
Yeah, I think, I know this is a project Morgan would really like, and they're trying to, how do we get more tourists here and to shop and to eat and to come for weekend trips, but, I wish he was here to maybe answer questions on potentially, is there another way? Have they really kind of shopped out pricing for designers? Is there something where you could have something just digital? But that being said, I agree that the cost of it and just the circumstances that we're in, unfortunately.
I think you raise good points, but remember, they're already here looking for a map. That doesn't bring people to this town, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather spend $60,000 on a Comcast buy and make Simsbury revolutionary or whatever the state did, right? I mean, that's better to get tourism than a map.
And I do think in a lot of towns, the business community actually funds maps like that because
Yeah.
it's almost like advertising
Yeah.
to be included on the
Right.
map.
That's
And
how
so
you-
I don't know if there's like a different model that they can perhaps look at if they have enough businesses that are all willing to chip in a little bit to be listed on the map, and then that's what you hand out to people.
The
Yeah, they
Kennebunkport map.
talked
I
about
think
that.
Tom wants to.
Yeah, they talked about that.
The Harvard Committee just re-upped their restaurant map. It's,
Yeah.
so they have that trifold, it's beautiful, it's got 35 restaurants in town on it.
How much they pay for it?
Job, and it's volunteers who do it.
Yeah.
So I'd
Thank you,
like
Tom.
to- I know I'm not part of the discussion, but Latimer did a map,
Yeah.
and we had students do it, and it was no cost. And so, I don't know if that's an option, but it's kind of like what you said with volunteers. The high school art program is ridiculously good. So that might be an option for them to
I love
reach out
that.
to
Solved
places.
it. Beautiful.
It's on you.
Sorry. I don't know, tourists coming to beat me up,
If
but
anything, it should be digitized and it should be,
I know.
it's gonna
A
use kind
QR
of
code, snap it, there's your map. I did have a follow-up question related to this because some of the conversation was, how are we helping people find businesses and their way around downtown? I wanted to get an update on the wayfinding signage, if you have one.
We've had many, many meetings on it. There's been no strong consensus. We have a couple of templates that should be getting put up in probably the next month or so.
What's the roadblock?
Design issues?
I would say design consensus
Aesthetic
at this
people's
point.
concerns?
Who is the roadblock? You don't have to answer that
Let's
now,
not-
but
yeah.
let's remove the impediment because that's ridiculous. We approved that a long
While
time
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
And it is insane that we're fighting over a design, not you, over the value. We approved that a long time ago, that we should not be fighting over.
Yeah, that was year-end
fonts.
money. Again, concern is it's getting stale as far as the money goes.
Yeah, I think that should move forward with all the things that are happening. Maybe you could go to design review board. Would it go to them?
That was part of the discussion where
No.
originally the intent was quick and dirty, and it's become a committee.
How much
Talk
input did you
offline.
get on, how much input did, make them look like the park signs?
Those are great.
They're beautiful. And if people don't like them, too bad. They're nice. You did a good job, right?
I think we envisioned something a little.
Whatever.
Okay, let's move
Well,
on.
let's move. Let's
progress.
Library literacy summer program.
Yeah.
Yes.
Picked on the library enough. Let's give it to them, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna suggest doing a 1-year pilot, and not committing to the 3 years to see how the first year goes, but if everyone's in favor of doing 3 years, I will go along with that.
I'm willing to roll the dice for kids getting books at schools on book bike and it.
How does it how does it differ? I'm sorry I made the presentation, but just refresh. Is it a twist on something that has existed in the past, or is it something that's revolutionary and new approach?
This is
or
the
just-
book bike.
Yeah, but I mean, like you did last year, you had the bike, and then this is just moving it into the community. Like, how didn't it happen before?
The bike didn't go to the elementary school last year.
But during the summer, so yeah.
It's expanding the reach of where the bike went last year. It went to Rotary Park, it went to Terrafil, but now it's going on a scheduled plan, 1 day a week at each of the elementary
So
schools.
that didn't happen last
It
year
did
at all.
not.
We've had it in
1 year.
house. Oh, I thought it was 2 years.
No, 1 year.
I saw it parked in the lobby for a while. I didn't know that. It was just the winter time.
1 year.
Chris is volunteering to drive it up the hill to Terrafil.
No, I just Tyberski. Look, he's on his fitness craze.
Senator from West Simsbury done, so we can move on.
Okay, Housing Authority.
So we have not, as a municipality, in my recollection, have we given them anything in the past?
Last year.
Well, okay. Was that an ARPA grant?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
But
the
minimum,
same.
but we've made them rely on state grants, and those state grants
Yes.
unfortunately chew up a ton of consulting money, so they don't get the benefit of those,
Yeah.
so.
What was the conversation we had with them a couple of years ago around maybe it was just granted, it was just approval, but there was a big project with doors and windows, not the electrical panels from
Yeah, it was
last
doors
year.
and windows, yeah.
How was that
Pretty
covered?
sure it's done.
But was it through us or was it through?
That was the state, that was the small cities grant, I believe, or whatever it was. Yeah, but again, those consultants take, what, 20 or 30% off the top of those. So, again, if the state wants to fix something, that would be good. I'm fine with this.
Yeah.
I don't think we invest much in the housing authority, and it's those I think folks would benefit from our help.
I would agree. I think we kind of talked about it in depth at our last budget.
Yeah.
It's health and welfare.
Okay, and the business program, first of all, is 250,000. Just keep it.
Well, the total ask is 525.
No, well, the ask was changed in our finance subcommittee.
Okay.
Confirmed
Okay.
to 250.
Okay.
Because that was what was left in the first tranche, and that was where this money was supposed to come from. It
Okay.
wasn't supposed to carry forward, but now that it's been pushed around, it's carried forward. So I'd be interested to hear what people think about that, because
So can I just get clarification on the memo? The last two sentences, however, there was final agreement as no subsequent meeting has occurred. Does that mean there wasn't final agreement because no subsequent meeting has occurred, or there was? In the cover, there was not final agreement?
well, there was an agreement in the finance subcommittee that we,
It's referencing the schedule that's on there.
no, there has not. That's an outstanding piece. Agreed,
Okay,
sorry about that.
okay, that's the
So that
that's
we had
the
moved
final
it
agreement.
forward, and then I said this on the other day, that Maria had pointed out that town staff wasn't going to provide these services, and we wanted agreement from Main Street that they were going to handle all these tasks. And we do not have that yet. My concern, I was a champion of this program. We've been talking about it for almost 2 years. My concerns now that it's bumped up against some resource issues, and this has taken kind of a bit of time on our part, and to not know if, without knowing that these are all gonna be committed and handled outside, and if this is gonna pull on any town staff, I don't know if we're able to have the resource capacity to do this at this point in time. I loved the program and I've wanted it to move forward, but that's my concern with the program right now. If anybody has, obviously we want to help our businesses. This would help, how many would it help? 10 divided by 10,000 into 25, potentially 25
Yep.
businesses. was intended to be a COVID relief, and some people are still suffering from COVID relief, but or recovery, but we're all at this point moving on and trying to move on. So I'm going to defer to other people up here.
I mean, I agree with your concern on staff capacity, right? We're in the middle of transition, and I think we need to make a prioritization decision for whether we're gonna focus on this. And then, we need a memorandum of understanding negotiated, and we essentially are not gonna have anybody to negotiate that until we bring an interim in, right? So we're not looking until after the budget's approved before we could probably have an MOU in place. Right, I mean, that's one of the challenges we're facing here, right?
Yeah, then this is kind of a side, on the side of the MOU, but it would be nice to have, this is almost asking for an MOU for this program, right? This is the level of ownership, and, we haven't gotten a response, and we won't get one tonight. People weren't available, and we need to make a decision on it. So if it's something if the money goes elsewhere or is in capital reserves, we could always do a business program. Not everybody does a business program just because they have ARPA. If that's something we want to look at in the future, when we know where we are, I like
the
to hear
idea.
from people.
I like the idea of having a business loan program because it's forward looking. I think that the further and further out we get from COVID, it is hard to have an aspect of the program based on looking back. So I like the idea of investing and moving forward, but I do think that right now, especially given our staffing issues, that we have to really have it very clear about who is responsible for what aspects of this program, and I still think this is going to be a tough time to get this off the ground. So, but I would like to see us invest in something like this.
The other option, well, this isn't a loan program though. This was a grant
It's a
program.
direct grant.
Grant, no loan.
Right. Well, I'm sorry. I said loan. This was a loan for business. Part of it could be used for investments in business facades. You could look at it, and I think that was something that was brought up in our subcommittee was, some communities do have facade loan programs. This was a grant program. We could look at that again down the road if we were to revive this idea.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them as being exclusive. I mean, I think this is just was something to try and help our businesses. When it first got started off, we were very much still in the pandemic. I understand that there is some town management resources, and that would be needed, and that would be difficult in the short term, but we could allocate the funds for it, and it could start a little later once we have our interim town manager.
That's a good point too. If we could,
I think
put
the
it aside.
facade program does help everyone. I do think our businesses have been hurt, and I think they still very much are. I hear from them all the time that they are not getting the traffic that they need right now. When I hear from them, and I think they are having a hard time to a point that I feel bad that we're only able to hold probably 25.
So Amy, we can appropriate, but then obviously we need the contract to be in place before this program would go. So there's really no risk if we appropriate, right? Money can't get spent till that, because it's the section in here that I'm particularly concerned about, the preparation of the contract for professional services, right? Because we don't have the TMO right now to do that.
Yeah, okay, that would be better. So we're gonna set it aside, and if this comes to fruition, we'll have the money, and if it doesn't, it'll stay in reserves.
Yeah, if everyone's in agreement.
Yeah, I am, I like that.
That's fine.
Without commitment. Tom,
Thanks.
just frame my mind. What is one of our signs cost?
$4,800 installed.
The generator.
Does it still count as ARPA, or does it come off? Because it's going to reserve kind of,
I
right?
think
It's gonna come out of the ARPA
Okay.
designation. It'll sit there and it would
Okay.
get spent down. But if
Okay.
it's not used at the end of the year, we can either continue the appropriation, right, or it would absorb back.
So you could, essentially you just unassign it
And put it back in.
something else, yeah.
So it's gonna sit there as a assigned fund balance, right? Yeah. If we stick it in capital reserve, it's unassigned. If we
Okay,
assign
I
it,
see.
if we assign it to this program, then it's protected until the contract's in place, until we choose to undo the action.
Right, but does it sit with assigned in capital reserves or?
Yes.
That's
It
me.
sits in reserves, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we've done that before for other things.
Yes.
Okay.
Fire district generators. I mean, the chief is right, it's either coming out of the fire district's mill rate, or this is a chance to save the taxpayers $123,000. I'm fine with this one.
But I just have a question about that. So that statement though, to me sounds like it's because it has to, this is an absolute event that has to happen date certain,
Correct.
okay? As the chief alluded to the other night, every single capital expenditure they make, they zero out. They pay for everything in cash.
Correct.
So just in theory, and I don't doubt the amazing, but I'm just understanding, why aren't these plugged into their long-term capital plan so that this gets, so something, the next, I don't know, inflatable boat or trailer just gets moved out a year and this comes up in front of it? That's just the question. Why is
So I
it
think
part of
they
that
probably
plan?
did, Chris. I think we can confirm that, but I think, I would assume it was on their replacement plan.
Right. I
And
think
then
they
they're asking us so that they can do something else.
I think they felt like this fit in with the intent, the original intent of ARPA money. And I think that the fire department's kind of plea to us has been, look, we haven't gotten any benefit from this. This does benefit the whole community. Health and safety was a big part of ARPA funds. So I think they're asking us if we would be willing to spend ARPA funds on this. But you're right in that if we don't, they will.
They will without an increase. I just want to be clear though. I don't look at it as an increase to taxpayer. I just think it's inserting in a plan which is it's 100% cash for investment plan that they have, cash for purchase. So then therefore it's just moving something on their plan outward until it gets paid.
You're right. We're not
until
saving
cash without raising taxes. I
We're
don't
not
see it as
saving the taxpayers an increase, but it is still taxpayer dollars.
I get it. But
Yeah,
just
I mean, yeah.
but they have a philosophy of paying for everything with cash without raising the mill rate.
So you're saying they would just find $125,000 or $123,000 to push off till the next year when they can pay cash for
just
it?
like we do.
Correct.
They said they could pay for it.
Just
They
like we do,
actually
but I mean,
said that.
unless if the generators are failed and not work, it's like the chiller and the I'm not arguing the value. I'm trying to argue the mechanism funding, which is what we talked about tonight. It's how to do this right. You know, when the HVAC, when the chiller or whatever the thing was on their ice rink failed, it's not working. You have an immediate concern. This is planning. I understand it could go, but it should just, to me, be part of a plan. And if it's just moves something else out that isn't an immediate concern, then the $125,000 helps us with some other component of our budget.
So to that end,
That's all just conversation,
Let's
okay?
star it and look at the rest of the cash or the rest of the capital. And Chris, if we want to go back and we need another 123, then I think we revisit that.
Yeah, I'm just
What else you got?
thinking how you opened this conversation
Yeah.
about the things that are.
I think that's fair.
We could say that about other things up here too, because we don't know what the.
I mean, it
Bottom
is,
line
but I
looks
mean,
like.
again, I think we're basically prioritizing the other ones that we would want to do these, whether I think there was ARPA or not, is essentially what we're kind of saying. With this one, we're not sure whether we would do this, whether there's ARPA or not,
Okay.
right? Is I think what, Chris, you're trying to make the point of?
Yes, and there's
Yeah.
also a second mechanism for which to solve for that problem.
Correct.
There isn't necessarily another mechanism other than outright bonding or
Let me
taxing.
say this a different way. If ARPA didn't exist, I don't think we would be including this in our CNR plan,
Fair enough.
right?
Thank you for that, that way.
Whereas the next one, I think we would be. The SVA radio system forgiveness, given their financial situation.
Well, and the other thing, there's $150,000 you're asking for. It's not up here either.
So we got to add that. That's next.
But that's not out of ARPA.
It could be.
I thought it was
be.
a part of
Or
it was.
That wasn't originally what the proposal was.
Oh, I thought it was labeled ARPA.
So my suggestion is to
think so.
hold everyone accountable, including myself, if
that
I'm
was under.
still here,
could
is
use
that we
ARPA.
do it as ARPA.
Yeah.
So that it's a one-time appropriation
Discussion.
and it is not a hit to the operating budget, which we're already challenged on. And that gives us the next year to find that longer-term solution, get the memos in place that we need to, change the governance structure if we need to, and decide on the long-term funding scheme, and then come back with the full solution. Right now, it's a short term. We need to get them through the next fiscal year. So I would advocate that the 150 should come from ARPA to keep them afloat in addition to the forgiveness here. So we're talking about 220 is what we would save / give that organization. And that is to keep them fiscally solvent.
That's exactly my
solvent for this
point.
current year.
My point, so just illustrates it better about the beating up of the fire district. It's like tonight's there. That's the library tonight. Sorry. They have another mechanism which to fund for that. The ambulance has no other mechanism. They're basically insolvent right now. So we have to assist to continue to provide that service for the taxpayer, residents. And that's why I rank it higher, because of they don't have the mechanism.
Fair enough. So Tom, can we add a line?
Yeah.
No, leave that. Yeah,
one.
leave that in. We need to. They're two separate and distinct things. I don't want to intertwine them.
Not easily in PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Going in Excel right here as well.
Thank you. You're making my case beautiful. Steve Jobs would be proud of you. For the sake of everyone's sanity, can we table the health reserve transfer for now? Because that's a concept that takes a lot longer to talk about.
I'm good with that.
At the end, I mean, the Board of Finance is going to decide that.
Yeah.
I think we can make a recommendation at the end, but I think we need to look through the rest of our capital
I
before.
think we need to see where we end up.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. I am philosophically there that we as a community need to transfer some funds, the 611, either from current year-end savings, ARPA, capital reserve, general fund, wherever the hell it is, we need to transfer it.
And I would say if we're still talking about things as ARPA or not ARPA, I don't see that as an ARPA.
Well, we're going to get rid of ARPA.
Well,
in the
I
next
think,
conversation.
well,
Don't
I
worry.
think the health insurance reserve was, I think the thinking behind that coming out of ARPA is that the fluctuation that we've seen in that fund has been a direct result of people that put off
Yep.
getting medical attention during the pandemic, and now what we're seeing are the claims really coming through at a much higher rate post-COVID, post-pandemic, because people are seeking out medical services. So this is helping smooth some of that out that was directly related to the pandemic.
And at the end of the day, the Board of Finance is going to decide whether they're going to take
Right,
it out of current
right.
year
I agree.
or ARPA. So
I guess I just wanted
It's a-
to
yeah.
explain my understanding of
Yep.
why that is showing up here, that
I think you're absolutely right. But again, if the chairwoman of the Board of Finance wants to move it from current year,
Right, right.
again, then we would potentially use this 600 for additional capital that we would move up. So
Yeah.
we can't figure that out tonight.
We could use it for bonded projects.
We could. Yep. So
Because that's where we'll make a difference over the next few years.
Correct.
Because everything we spend here could go to reduce bonding.
and we could keep the town away from 8%.
Right, so that's kind of why I don't want to just dump all the cash here
Well-
before we look at the impact to the future debt service.
I agree with you. My only caution would be if we don't use current year end, then it's either got to come from ARPA or it's got to come from cash reserves
Right,
to
right.
do it. So,
Well, I'm just thinking reserves. If
or it
it's,
could come there. Yeah. Again,
it's just in labeling, it doesn't
Yeah.
show anything as far
Yeah.
as a community value add that we use the federal funds for health reserves.
correct. Okay.
That's all.
All right. You guys want to do the big one next? Want to get back to CIP?
Oh.
We kind of started there, right? And then we got off. So, the list, you don't have a list of projects, huh?
Not on here.
Yeah. All right, so go to our budget book, page 214, guys.
I had it open before we started. I got it open from the beginning.
So, the first one is,
What's that?
214?
I'm on 215, but we'll leave it at 214.
so golf course is up first, and that's coming out of the Simsbury Farms Fund. So, Amy, are we comfortable pulling 300 out of that fund?
Yeah, I think when we did it, just let me double check the number, I think there was over $400,000 left in fund balance of doing that.
Even with the projected decrease next year? Because I think we're down $1.89. remember from the presentation. Which, by the way, we might not be, depending on the weather and everything else, but.
$1.89 from this time last year.
No, I thought. Yeah, maybe I was looking at it wrong. That wasn't being critical, by the way.
I know. I think we're actually ahead from where we were last year.
No, I'm talking about next year, the proposed.
You're proposed on the CIP or the are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the revenue fund,
I know, but
not CIP, the operating. What the hell is the revenue fund?
So you're just trying to see if there's another fund balance in there to pay the 300?
Correct.
But don't we have, I mean, what are our options? We have to.
You leave it there.
We allocated out of the revenue fund this year $454,000, because you still have to have we had the car path in there for 20, we had the TV bill for 20, we had 114 for paving. What I said to you the other day, take all the 300,000 and that 154,000 and put it into that one CIP project, because that's what's gonna take to get us close to being able to do the irrigation system, and hopefully enough, but, and then we put off the other stuff, we deferred the other stuff for a year or two.
So we gotta show that, because there was a lot of math there.
So Tom, was that the cart pass you were talking about?
Yeah, the cart path paving was 114.
114 and then there's a 20
There's a 20 for cart path prep.
and then 20 for the
TV bill. And
So
they were
you're
all
saying-
funded from the same source.
Right,
From fund balance.
right. Okay, so you're saying if you needed to, you could take those off the CNR for this year or move them out a year?
I'm saying push them back, those three other things, 1 year, push them back, but take that 114
And,
for now, into the 154 into that, plus that 300.
yeah,
And that gets us hopefully enough to do the irrigation system.
I see what you're saying.
And we revisit, this time next year, we revisit the ability to fund balance for those other
I
projects.
see.
yeah.
Okay, that's getting not creative, it's actually.
So,
That's what we-
Amy, help me out on the math. So page 149 is where the revenue fund is. So we're projecting a net fund balance change of 300, which is the irrigation project allocation. That's why we're projecting the loss.
yeah, so that already includes CNR projects of 559,000. So 300 of it is the irrigation, you know, the 105 is off the top of your head. I can look.
Not the 105, no.
105 and then 154,000.
I
Okay.
don't know what 105 is.
So that's,
That's
so,
okay.
so the first question was,
If that makes
That
more
makes
sense,
much more
because I'm
sense.
like,
we still have 485, so you're comfortable with the fund balance at that point, leaving it with the 300 before we do the math you just talked about? Okay.
In a perfect world, we could, and this goes by what I've been saying to most of you the last 4 years. The golf course profits should go back into the golf course project maintenance. It's just, it sticks with that, we're just deferring for a year
Okay.
or more, depending how things go.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
Amy, help me back. I'm sorry. I gotta belabor this point. How are we only going 300 down 300 on the fund if we're projected to spend over 500? That means that the revenue is expected to exceed the expenditures by 200 and something thousand.
Yeah, let me pull it out without and tell you what it is.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure. I'm just trying to understand.
We've added back the programs that
Yeah,
I was talking about the other day, those have come back, the golf courses continue to outperform year over year.
So
Yeah,
if
I
that's
take
true,
out
you
that
can still
CNR.
do those projects.
Yes, but I've also philosophically kept in mind that we keep that rainy day fund at a minimum level as a promise to you guys that, I'd rather I'd rather get this irrigation system done capacity wise this year with everything going on and make sure we have the money to fund it and then come back to you and say, hey, this is done, we have a little left over plus what we made again, the fund balance is at a good place. Let's do that, let's do the cart path paving now. And maybe we add another 57 into it to get it all done in one fell swoop, but.
All right. So we're taking cart path out of CNR, and we're taking cart prep out of CNR. So that 134 is coming out.
And then the T, I think also.
The 20, okay, so those are coming out, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to track through on the book what's
Yeah.
coming in and out, okay. Thank you. So, all right, so this one, so we gotta pave, right? Highway pavement management. So Chris introduced a concept that we could go down in quality of road, and I know that's literally not what you meant, but if we reduce the number, that is what happens. We go from an 83 to an 81, whatever. We can play with fire for a couple of years, but not necessarily recommended, and it's hard to catch up. And if energy prices go the other way, we're gonna wish we paved more now, right? So we just freed up a whole bunch of capital.
And the other thing on this is we are 10 paved and pricing goes down, the money stays there.
Right.
We're not gonna go and pave an extra 2 miles, we're not gonna pave it thicker or.
Loop, yeah.
Amy, do you have the breakdown for us on? This is like the old budget book. It already did this for us. There's 4 funding sources, and I don't know what's what.
You have to go to the page.
I don't want to go.
Highway
No.
pavement breakdown is 218.
Say that again?
218,
Is what?
highway pavement breakdown? Is that what you want?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So bonds is 1.1 mil. Operating transfer of 200K and grants of 400K. So that's TAR, right? And lots of, so we're out there. Operating transfer is coming out of our operating budget, and that's consistent, right,
Do
Tom?
that anyway.
Yep. So the question is, this is our first chance to reduce bonding if we want to. ARPA.
Still hard.
We just free up a boatload of cash. So do we use ARPA to smooth this bump and get us back to the normal 750?
Well,
Now, Sean, would you be in favor of doing that if you knew that it would be this high going forward in the future? Not that anyone knows.
No, I'd rather just absorb it if I knew it was going to be this forever.
so you're using ARPA to fund the 1.1, what's the amount?
That's the suggestion, and if we did it, we would use the difference between 750 and 1.1 to keep the bonding consistent on a year-over-year basis. Would be the only case. I wouldn't ask for the whole 1.1.
I see what you're saying.
But I'm banking on Eric's very question is that our costs go back down. So do we use 350 out of ARPA to defer bonds on that piece to keep it flat, or do we actually give them 700 and do it for the 2 years? Because we know we're going to pave every year, right? So do we, Amy, do we commit basically 700 from ARPA for paving to defer the increase in bonding costs for the next 2 years? Is what the question we're talking about. To keep us at the 750.
I mean, essentially, more of the stuff that we do year over year that we don't bond for, the better. So I guess yes.
Because that's smoother, it's predictable. Now, again, we're banking on the cost going back down. Right.
Yeah, you're taking
I mean, I don't want
shot in
to
the
create a
dark.
cliff in future years when we don't have ARPA to use to.
Fair. So we can do it somewhere else too.
So can I ask the difference if we use ARPA for this versus using ARPA for a public capital project?
Nothing.
Like the
You're right.
bridge, and then people can say,
Yep.
used it for the bridge instead of paving roads.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we were to potentially move the bridge, I'm in agreement with you, Wendy. I think it's just a nice community, for the community to see.
What we use our ARPA funds for.
You can point to it.
Exactly. That's, and we used it last year, now we can say, we pay for the bridge with federal dollars. And no one will care about the rest of it, they'll just take it all into the bridge.
How much in ARPA did we take down, Amy?
We're at 1.1.
Have $2,070,612 left.
So the question to the board is, do we want to remove the B and put in ARPA from the bonds, or from the bridge?
I'd like to know how does that impact, like, the debt service
Yeah.
costs over the next few years? We'll see that tomorrow
Okay.
or later.
Are we just like split hairs, or is it actually?
I can calculate it. Hold on.
It's
For
basically,
1 million.
it's a 10-year bond with 200,000 and change, right?
A year? Okay, so that's a good chunk to save.
assuming we don't throw something else into the
I
hole.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah,
mean
we
that we
are.
get to spend it someplace else.
Yeah, we're gonna
But
throw
I don't-
something else in the hole next year, but at least we don't do it this year.
Well, I don't see us adding anything here this year, personally,
So we have.
right? Nobody else has asked for a CIP item other than what's shown here. The only new item is the barn. How much is going to that?
So with the bridge in the ARPA, where does that bring us?
Right.
Brings us with a few $100,000.
Plus the 200 from last year, right?
So don't take the full 22 million in ARPA and apply it to
Yeah.
bonding.
Well, we could apply the 1.9, right?
We're just talking about
that's-
deferring the entire cost of the bridge right now. The 189.
So there's only change left though after that.
Just trying to keep this tied project to project.
So it saves about 250,000 in the first year.
That keeps us away from 8%, right?
Yeah.
Once you do the Latimer issuance, right?
More today, so.
Yeah. All right, so we can model that out later when we see that, but. All right, so between last year's leftover and this year's, can you just figure out for us, because there's another thing coming up on how much ARPA we have left over? Assuming is there general consensus to do the bridge with ARPA?
Yes,
Yeah.
All right.
well, I'm sorry, that was a theme on Saturday.
Right, I mean, it doesn't really matter, it's like anything, any project with that is being bonded.
I know, but I'm trying to get
But-
projects that add up to the number that's
Yeah,
left
do
over.
we have?
Right, but.
So it does matter.
So if you take out the bridge, you have 81,612 left in ARPA.
Plus last year's.
That includes last year's.
Okay. We got 81 grand left, okay. Thank you. Trying to get rid of it.
And that, you're including 250 as being earmarked still, or?
Okay.
That's what you said, 250.
Well, this is where we, when we look at the bottom line, we can see if it makes a big difference in lowering our costs annually, we may take it out,
It does.
right?
Right.
I think that's the goal.
Can we just rip through some of these guys? So public works truck, I assume everybody's good with. We do it every year.
Yep.
Sidewalk reconstruction, we've committed to that, and I assume we're gonna continue to commit to it.
Yep.
Refurbishing the elevators, we have to do that at some point, especially with the issue at Eno, and then obviously we can't have the library accessible. That's just not something we can
And that
have.
number, that does include Tom, right?
Yep.
That includes the library too, right?
All
Yep,
three.
it's all
Just
three.
want to make sure it's not,
Oh, it includes all three.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
all
I
three.
was thinking it
I
was.
did.
All right, we already did the bridge, right? So now we got the barns.
Yeah, what is the barn story?
So the barns is,
650, right?
it's 650, it's got some,
450 is grants,
yep,
85 is a donation from TPL,
yep,
the lease payments.
yep.
And then, so it's a
It's a-
capital reserve amount of 57,500, the rest is grants and donations. And the agricultural lease payments.
Is that just to, like a commitment portion of ours for the grants, the 57?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, that's the match to I think, to keep
Yeah.
the grants, so we got to keep them, yep. All right. Multi-use trail to Curtis, the most expensive mile in town.
Yeah. And Tom, for that, you know, at some of the meetings, they, what's his name,
Bruce Donald?
mentioned we could potentially, once everything was labeled East Coast Greenway, we might be able to get more money in there? Is that factored into any of this, or is that something you don't expect would happen?
There's the, I'd say there's a slim possibility. We're gonna continue to chase it, but
Okay.
this one's been out there for a long time and trying to get it done.
We spend so much time and money
I
solving.
don't want to touch this one.
Say again?
We've done a lot of work on this one for many years. I don't
Yeah.
want to touch
Yeah,
this one.
okay. Yeah, that's it.
All right, remind me, did we left the 389 for the, building infrastructure, right, Tom? Okay. All right, and then we've
So
got
that-
bridge,
yeah.
sorry.
No, never mind. I was thinking of the climax got moved up, right, Tom? Because the 372, I don't think we were funding that this year, last year, like, right? If I look at last year's, the climax road was way out. And now we moved it up because you're applying for a grant, correct?
Yes,
I think that's right.
So
And-
that's why we have to give money now.
that's correct. And that's gonna be for our matching portion, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be about a 4-year project to get that bridge rehabbed.
Okay.
All right. And then fire town barn door is all grant? Right? Okay.
Have to do the sewer use.
I'll Google all those if you guys are.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, the only question I had was the surprise, it was a surprise to me on the amount of money for the T-Bell modulars.
oh, the half mil?
Yeah, 500 is bonded, 350 in cash. We paid 350 in cash last year. So it's it's a new $500 bonding amount for the BOE.
It is.
Who, I mean, I guess you can't really argue with that, but we have given them quite a bit of funding this year for Latimer. But I don't know how long modulars last.
Sounded from Jason like these
Yeah.
2 projects need to be done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
did.
well, these last 30 years, so.
He actually
40
gave
years.
better
40.
indication that.
Yeah.
He actually gave better indication that next year's roof replacements could be maybe
Oh.
kicked down the road a
Okay.
little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, remember that next year then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all right with those, and we're still holding the 81 in our back pocket for the smaller capital items.
But we do have a lot, next year, there's a lot of capital projects.
There is, but there always is, and that'll
Yeah,
change.
we're gonna have to.
Yeah,
but
that'll always
just-
change.
that's just the
Nice.
schedule.
But remember, we just took 2 million off the debt,
Yep,
schedule,
yep,
so
that's good.
if we follow.
Doesn't
so-
mean we spend it.
Can you just,
Nope.
can you just take, Amy, if we have 81,000 left, what happens if you pay that? Can you just pay that on the debt service? Does that do anything?
Like a one-time payment?
Yeah,
I mean, it saves you $80,000 a year.
this year, right?
Or we could just chuck it
Whatever
against
you
one,
want
just
to do.
chuck it against one of the projects to defer
Yeah, well,
81,000 of
true.
bonding, right?
That's true. But
Save the interest, yeah. Either way.
so I'm just looking if we do need to reduce, we haven't cut anything this year at all.
So we should probably, if we have it at the end and what we finally decide with
Yeah, we
everything
could use
else,
it somewhere.
we could allocate that against
Can you
another
actually-
bonded project or.
Is that something that's not restricted, like just an absolute, just straight outright
Yeah,
payment?
they said, yeah. we could
I
pay.
just sort of, like,
Or we throw it in capital reserve.
is there anything it's not anymore? Could you buy a helicopter just for the heck of it? It's gonna be just a thing
Why
now.
not?
like,
Not
it's
every
nothing.
will approved.
You want-
Yeah, you want help? Why not?
Reduce.
Look at my license.
Helicopter, you have, rotor?
No, I said I would get my
Oh,
license.
okay, I was like, wow.
I won't even charge you for it.
For cuts this year, we don't have any.
That's a cliff. I mean, we can.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so I don't think there's anything more in CIP that we
That's
could really
CIP.
play
So
around
we're gonna
with,
do
right?
CNR.
Let's do CNR.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
What page?
All right, one thing.
155.
So we do need to add one item right off the top, which is town manager search.
Right, yep.
And we, placeholder, we said what?
40?
40.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given what's happened to us on cost, I would love to just put 50 in there and come in under budget, then do 40, and then we gotta come back and ask for
Yeah.
8 more grand.
I'm fine with that.
You mean that search firm is gonna need more semiconductors and chips and stuff?
And ironically, we have 81,000 sitting around, so we could use the ARPA for that.
We could.
Yeah.
please.
Can we use ARPA as the preliminary funding source for that? Please?
Then it's free.
Yeah, we already paid for it years ago. Before the feds gave us our money back.
Yeah.
Oh, still money.
All right, reval, we do that every year.
Mm-hmm.
Computer replacement, we committed to that last year, right?
Yes.
We can do it. Radio system, we already locked into that. Craft room,
That comes out of the specific fund, doesn't it?
Yep.
We're good with that.
It's not us.
capital reserve fund for the network storage and virtual environment. I think Rick made a good presentation to us on that, right?
This is the end, right,
Yep.
for now?
Network switches, that's kind of a must-do, right?
That's a have.
Yeah.
Security camera infrastructure and equipment is a must-have, right?
Financial fraud is a must.
Yeah, Lisa
Yeah,
told
we
us
have
that
to
was
do
number
that.
one, right? So we're doing that one.
Which rarely gives us any direction, factual, that was a pointed one.
So respectfully, and I promise I'm not trying to cause issues, but because of the change in government, or excuse me, because of the change in leadership, I don't think there's value in doing an employee
Correct.
satisfaction
I was just gonna
survey
hook
right
it.
now.
Let's skip
Okay.
that one.
Well, I was gonna add a couple comments to that. If we do the search and we do, get feedback and information on the hiring of our search on a town manager, can an additional consulting piece be incorporated in that search that works with the employees? To find ways to make sure we want people, it was gonna be used to find out about retention and also satisfaction and things like that. Would that be valuable in the search for the town manager? That's my question on that.
So we're gonna
And
get
then we would-
feedback on somebody that's not here anymore is the challenge, right? So we
Well,
don't
it wasn't
know.
it was on that and work environment retention. One of Maria's things was, ways to keep people in their job, retention. So I'm just saying, do you bump up the search, and if there's any piece that consultant can do in that arena, it can become part of the search.
So I'd play ball in the search if we change the topic to us, the elected boards and commissions, and how the employees feel about our interactions and perhaps the Board of Finance's interactions with town staff. But I don't think there's value in getting employee satisfaction survey on an individual that's leaving. So if we want to get the employee's vantage point from our interactions and perhaps, expand it to other boards and commissions, I think that would be worth it. We have a lot of roles and responsibilities for elected boards. We have a lot of input, discussion, interaction. And there could be some value into that. But again, getting feedback on someone that's departed just to me doesn't make sense.
I get that part, but I was looking at it more as a work. A lot of Barcampson's going to a 4-day work week. Ways to retain employees, because Maria has always conveyed that it's such a tough market out there, that if there was a way to shape some of the work structure, I'm not even looking at the satisfaction piece, I'm looking at the piece of the work-life balance piece. Is there a way to use this survey to help do that?
Wendy, I think that there's a good narrative there. I think that what you're asking.
It's Maria's narrative, to be
I'm
honest.
saying that there's a good narrative there that has to be considered. Are we? Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's titled incorrectly. Employee satisfaction. Maybe it's your employer satisfaction survey. What is our critical staff, which is every single one of the employee assets? What do they think about the town of working for the town of Simsbury? Not necessarily because Sean, you're I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm hearing you saying this is directed at
Who?
their experience with Maria, who you're correct is who will no longer be a part of us. So that I agree would probably have a look, and probably I don't know that this is the best. People would probably say yes, you should take your surveys at your lowest point to know how to move to go up from. But I think that survey is gonna have a lot of emotion in it, right? If I asked Amy right now and Tom to think about that, there's going to be a lot of emotion for us to try to weed through to get at the things that Wendy might be thinking about. How do you evolve how should we evolve how this place is laid out. How is it, how the hours and whatever it means. I don't know if we're gonna really get at all that at this point in time in where we are.
So can I make another suggestion?
That wasn't
It's
very
not
clear,
just
but
about the
that's
town manager, it's also about people's, you know, you didn't, if I'm an employee and I have who I report to directly and they report to two other people, I'm not necessarily reporting on the chief executive officer. I'm reporting on my chain of command, too. So one way we could say is we could just earmark it and put it in as a $20,000 hold in case there is a need for it.
I see both points, and I can see the benefit of it in some ways. If it's actually, how far down into the employee chain is
Yeah.
the survey trickling, I guess, is a question. And some of it can, it could potentially be beneficial, not so much in the townwide search, but just, are our employees happy here? It's the same thing, they work in different groups, they work in different teams, and just get an overall of ones that are not even in this building, just.
Yeah, because I think that
where they're at is
our
morale
audience,
and all
our
that
audience
stuff.
is right here. We work super close to this layer of the onion, right? But someone who in Tom in Roy's organization who's rocking and rolling in his truck or her truck right now, never comes in town hall, never integrates with us, never integrated. We don't know how that individual or one of the chief's people who are out there just grinding it out, just trying to keep things moving forward. And
Don't
we don't
disagree,
ever
guys,
talk.
but remember, this is not a corporation. This is a unionized
Right.
environment as well, right? So we have to be careful of the questions we ask, and because a lot of the answers might be collectively bargained, and/or we can't do it, right? Like, it's great that other towns are going to a 4-day work week. What does that mean for us from a contractual standpoint? There's a lot to think through with that. So never ask a question you don't want the answer to. So we have to
Yeah.
be really careful too.
So, but can't we just say have it funded and it's there, or it's
I don't-
assigned?
I
Then
just-
we don't.
I just think with the tough decisions we need to make, this one goes this year.
And at this point, I don't know that we'd get a super honest answer with clear directives, considering the emotion that we're in right now.
My concern is that I think our top priority is to get moving on engaging a consultant and having really thoughtful discussions with that consultant that's kind of finding our replacement for the town manager. And I'm afraid if we also try to add in the employee satisfaction survey, I don't want to see our search get bogged down by trying to add in a piece related to employee satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm completely torn on it. I mean, I see it. You could see an employee say, find it kind of good overall. Of I'm being asked about my work environment and where I stand. But I also see your point with dealing with unions, and I see what Amber's saying with the consultant. So I'm going to not drive this train.
I mean, we
Well,
do
it's gonna
care
be-
what they think. We do care what our employees think.
Well-
It's a timing issue to me.
Well, it was a goal. I would say it was in our goals, and I'm not saying it was in our goals for one person. It was in our goals as something we wanted to do. So I still stand by it, but if, 4 people they want it out, that's
So let's leave it on the list, but
It is
it's
one of our goals.
yeah, well, begrudgingly. So let's leave it on the list, but it's ranked at the bottom. So if we have to cut things, we'll talk about it again.
That's
Is that
fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Charter revision.
Hi,
Yeah.
number one.
Aye.
Number one.
Okay. The Terrafil and area plan. So
Yeah,
everybody's on
that's-
board with that.
Solid for me.
All right. So we did general government. Woohoo, we're moving. Library computers. I assume everybody's good. That's the replacement schedule. We already talked about the vending machines. We don't need to beat that one up again. Police cruisers. I assume we're good. Admin vehicles. I assume we're good. Training rooms coming out of the PD fund. Right. Body worn cameras coming out of the PD fund.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Body armor coming out of the PD fund, tasers coming out of the PD fund. I still want to get to use the leftovers if we can.
I'm good with all the police.
The launchers, yeah.
You gotta say it.
Are we all good with all the police asks?
I think we should just, for the statement, just keep going down.
Yeah.
Launchers.
Okay.
Launchers, good. Scheduling software, good, right?
Thank you.
Material recycling, yep. Again, Tom, kudos to you. Good practice. Saves us money in the long run. Community farm, I think we're gonna have to do that. God, please have it be that cheap, Tom. Yep. The north end sidewalk contribution, we have to do that, right? Vehicle charging stations, all right.
There we go.
So how would these be funded?
This is basically putting money out there so that we have them funded, so that as grants become available, we can go after grants. So ideally, this is a placeholder value, and we would be using a small portion of this, hopefully, maybe half of this, to get a few, not necessarily all 4, EV stations up. It's being forward-thinking to the fact that we know that grants are coming out this year.
Okay.
Is there, sorry, go ahead.
Do those grants cover, like, I'm assuming the whole project would be more than 112, but the 112 would be our contribution.
That's what we're earmarking, really, that's for 2 sites. Is about where we came up with 112. And then I believe the 2 sites would be the library, which is a little bit challenging, which is where the electrical panels and things are laid out. And the other would be Eno, since we're doing the parking lot and some other things. That would be, this is kind of the year to do that.
So 22 is our contribution, 89 would come from grants potentially.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is this the infrastructure grants?
I mean,
This is just, there's a number of different grants right now for EV charging stations.
Just because the IIJA,
Yep.
CROG said the first round was the EV charging grants were going to people a mile from a highway, but round 2 would go to others, which we'd be in the others bucket.
Yeah.
So there's supposed to be money specifically coming for that.
Right.
State level one.
And when
Right,
we,
federal level.
Is there state level or?
we had investigated some grants this year, and again, we still had a chunk of money that we had to pay because our sites were
Okay.
like, they would have a threshold of, okay, we'll give you a dual EV charging station and we'll cover the first 50,000. That was not going to get us there, so we would definitely have to put some of our own funding.
I would like to, somebody brought this up, that if and when we get some more, or we start getting some more, we put in a policy of whether we're gonna charge for the electricity
So
or not.
that's my,
Because
that's my
I'm sure I'm
condition.
giving it away.
That's my condition to move this tonight, is that I would ask that before these are installed, that this board, whenever it is, whoever it is, has a conversation and decides as a community whether it's free or charged. I don't think we
Yeah.
need
Good
to
with that.
decide that tonight,
Yeah.
but that the Board of Selectmen must vote
Yes,
before they're
because-
put in.
yeah, I'm good with
Is
that.
that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Just we are participating in the enablement and the conversation, and the conversion.
Yeah.
What you're still talking about at that time when that goes in, 99%, 1% of those users will be taxpayers who also pay, but 99% will be taxpayers who don't use that whatsoever.
I agree.
So,
As a suggestion, maybe you send that to the sustainability committee to come up with a draft proposal.
Pretty sure I know what they're gonna come back with.
I think you'd be surprised. I don't think they're
I
gonna.
think, I think part of our ask of them,
They're not gonna come back with free.
okay.
part of our ask of
That's
them
what they're for,
could be
right?
to,
Yeah.
I mean, these litter municipal lots anywhere you go. I mean, Simsbury in some ways is behind on
Well,
the EV
behind.
charger front. So I think that we could, part of their work could be to look at some other communities and why they have made the decisions they've made.
All right. Everybody's good with crosswalk safety?
Yes.
Good. Iron Horse Landscaping.
Okay, I have a proposal on this one.
Go, Eric.
Okay.
So we have, how much of the money is left that we allocated last year for pollinators, Tom, like roughly? Like is about, okay, so almost all of it. What I was gonna suggest is that we don't need to tackle this entire project this year. So what if we cut that by 125,000 and did 25,000 this year, pair that with the roughly 25,000 we have, and Tom, I'd like any feedback you have on whether that would give us a head start on doing the design work.
Well, I think the first step is to pay for the design.
Okay.
That, I don't know exactly what that's gonna be, maybe it's in the $25,000 range, I think that would probably get you there. And once you have the design, now you can start implementing it in phases, but the first year has gotta be a little bit more to make sure it covers that. And I've not hired a landscape architect in a long time.
Yeah.
I would say 25,000 should probably get you pretty
I
close.
can ask a really dumb question. Why do we need a landscape architect to plant a bunch of flowers?
Because we want the flowers to look right. It's one of it's like all things. We all plant flowers around our own home. It's one thing, but when you're talking about a long piece like that, the difference between having it done professionally and having it done by a bunch of amateurs, it's gonna be small differences that you'll pick up on for decades. It's making sure that we select the right plans, it's making sure, like I think the Marjorie Winters had some great concepts of how it would flow and represent different things.
So
You
we
gotta
have
make
talent and staff
They get-
in-house? I mean, 25 grand seems like an obscene amount of money for, it's this wide, Tom.
Could the gardening
I
club
mean-
assist in it? Most of them, some of them are master gardeners.
No, these are really good questions. We've been exploring this for quite a while with the pollinator group, and I think what we're finding is a project of this size is a lot for volunteers to do the landscape design work.
So I had, I was thinking about this because I didn't feel like I wanted to spend $150,000 on the Iron Horse median, to be honest with you. And so I was thinking about, I know this won't fly, but there's an Adopt a Median program that a lot of communities have, and they put it out to businesses or, you know, Warner Nursery or somebody like that, and they own that plot, and they market it, and you can put the little sign, and then it's on Iron Horse where everybody's going down and going to the pack. I know it's not gonna be perfectly uniform, as sounds like you would want, but that was just a concept that, I was thinking to take it off of our list right now and see if there's any options out there to get people to volunteer. That was going along with Heather said, or take on it and get some sort of advertising out of it. Because I drove by there this week to see how bad it looked. Max was pointing out the areas that you guys were talking about, and some of it looks crappy, but I don't notice it as much as some people would notice what it looks like, so.
I think there's a couple of other nuances with this. I think one is that this is an area where a lot of people come who are visiting our town, and it's putting our best foot forward in that area. The other is by incorporating this as part of the larger pollinator initiative. This is really a canvas that we can use to educate the community on good practices that they can do also on their own private property too. And I see as we're doing this to engage the community in meaningful ways as we plant this, so that they understanding not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it.
So I agree with you, but at the same time, if we told them we spent $25,000 to pick where we're going to plant it, they'd throw us across the road. I mean, that would not fly with any taxpayer on an individual conversation. That's my struggle here. Is I can't look the taxpayers in the eye and tell them I spent 25 grand on somebody telling me where to plant flowers.
And what flowers?
That's
So-
where I'm struggling with it right now, is I've tried to go into the budget in the beginning with saying that the nice to haves probably can't happen this year, and I think it would be a very nice to have, but I just also falls into the nice to have right now.
Do we not, just to recirculate the question, do we not, that I think these types of initiatives and have some of the most impassioned people as part of the army out there behind them, is a fair statement. Think about, do we actually, in that community of concerned citizens who are behind this, do we not have a professional amongst them?
Many.
Someone who is question. And if we actually, as a board or as a town, approach that individual and said, please help us with this.
Yeah, we
At a
have.
very formal level, not just like on Chris throwing some seed down, walking around.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably one of the most motivated community I think we have here, sub-communities. So we've even approached them to say,
So yes, and I think that if the feedback that I'm getting from this board is that we're not going to be willing to fund the design work, I'd like to go back to this group and let them know that they're going to have to do this if this project is going to happen. But candidly, the reason why we went to originally, we had hoped that they would be able to do this work. We found over the past year that it was too big and too much. But if that's the way we get it done, then we bring that feedback back to them.
I mean, I would also say, having sat through our town hall kind of session at the POCD, I mean, one of the very top things that people cared about in Simsbury was open space. And I think that the pollinator pathway, project is a big part of that. And I think that there is a significant number of people in our community that care about open space and would want to see a project there done in a thoughtful way that is incorporating these practices. So I am a supporter of it. I also support Eric's idea that we could parcel this out and spread it to where it's something we can bite off and get done. But I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it the right way. And otherwise, it's going to be a disservice to that community to say, we're going to plant a bunch of plants here, but we don't care what they are or how they look or what you care about or what, that's difficult, I mean.
Nothing would be done independent of the group. I'll be clear on that. It was definitely always to work with the pollinators. And it's just making sure this is something that we can bite off so that the hard part is if we took it one island by island, it's just you're going to see for the next couple of years, you're going to have the old and the new.
Right.
And it's going to be a hodgepodge.
Right.
But is there a way to have, this amount includes the work and the plants and the design work.
Yep.
So if we can get help with the design work, that at least can bring it.
I guess, honestly, I can gladly connect with you offline on this. I've been trying to get traction on the design work for a year, and I haven't been successful.
And I'll be honest, I had a number for the whole thing. I never had a number just specifically for the design, so that's just a wild guess at this point. So it may be less than that. I can contact a landscape architect this week, find out what they really be looking for. But again, it's, I've seen some very good concepts from Marjorie and some of the others. And it would, again, it may be that they would have somebody to simply review that and say, yeah, make these few changes and you're going to have a better outlook.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm ignorant, but you can't go down to Warner's and say, hey, Jess, we're gonna spend 25 grand, pick out the right plants, make it look pretty, and go.
You know our procurement policies.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so ask the flower on the north end too, right? But the point is why do we can use professionals too that aren't gonna make it look like hell.
That's correct.
Right, that don't, because I guess I'm skipping the design piece.
So let's make sure, so that's important for the organization to hear our sentiment. We are in support of the project and we'll fund the project, but it's difficult to talk with the taxpayers and say, we spent $25,000 for the.
Here's a plan, but we got daisies, right?
So I hope that you convey that we're behind it, but that's, and I can't imagine there's not like you go to there's not a program out there, an organization at the federal level, a nonprofit, or go to UConn and speak with their agriculture department and say, do you have an extension program or a student who's looking for something? There's if we talk to some people, we'll get it in motion.
I spent, a number of us in this room spent time with the UConn architectural design students. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that that could be an option for us.
So I'll play ball on your 25,000 for this year, with the understanding that we would like that to go to actual plants.
For materials.
Yeah.
And did I hear though on Saturday, it's not necessarily pollinator plants, it's plants like that will look good, right? Like,
no, the intent
I thought I heard that.
No, the intent would be that it would be in line with the pollinator pathway
Okay.
initiative.
So pollinators and natives.
They have to serve a purpose.
But
Okay.
yeah, if you look actually at the garden they did actually up at the community farm, it's really a nice looking garden. Nothing is detracted from, it's the nicest garden you're going to see, and it's native and pollinator.
Where is it?
Up at the community farm.
Oh.
And that was done by people from the garden club.
Right.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, so it's just
Okay.
whether or not again, bringing it to a much larger scale. And the challenge isn't just buying the plants, it's going to be digging up and putting them in.
I get it.
So
And and you'd be maintaining, correct?
These
It's
are
the
low
team-
maintenance
the team maintains.
Yeah,
Right, so we're not asking for them to be a
just
participant.
by a weird sense of how we've all broken up things, Public Works maintains that area.
So
So I think Heather has a solution for Eric. So
Would we
you're gonna get the sale.
consider the remaining 30,000, potentially 40, depending on where the search comes in at 40 or 50? Would we consider allocating that to this project?
So use the remaining 30 from ARPA that we have?
Yes.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That gets you
I don't
30.
care where it comes from. as
That
long
gets
as
you
we get
30.
it.
It's not coming out of the
So we're
capital
just lowering
fund.
this amount.
It's more likely to survive the next board's review if we're using it for ARPA, and then we can revisit it in another year if we want to continue to fund this on an ongoing basis.
I like that.
It's a great solution.
What I'm hearing from this group is that we want to minimize/eliminate design costs, and we need to find some creative solutions to make that happen.
Yeah, and I liked your pulling forward the prior money too, if you need to.
Yeah,
Yeah. Basically, I have 50.
that gives us about 50,000.
And to the extent that we save on the design costs, that can just roll right over into
Material.
the
Exactly.
materials, so.
I mean, no one wants to pay for the design costs.
Right.
All right, Amy, did you get that? So we got leftover 30-ish, whatever ARPA's left? All right. Station Street, right, we're doing that? Melissa Brett's gonna come up here. She deserves that, as do the other businesses. Metacom Drive. So I know folks struggled with that one. Here's my cases. We've cut down several $100,000 in trees that were not necessarily our trees. They were right, over the years, they were gonna go into the town right away, right? Or they were very close to the town right away?
If the tree's in the town right away, we cut it down. If the tree is partially on the town right away, we'll cut it down. If the tree is not in the town right away, we'll try to work with Eversource to get them to cut it down, but we do not cut down trees on private property.
But if it falls on our road, we take
Once
care
it
of
falls on our road, we own it.
Right.
And we also do send letters from time to time to say, sorry, but we've noticed there's a dead tree on your property that has potential to fall in the road. You
But
need
at the end of the day, it hits the power lines or closes the road and then we deal with it. All I'm
Exactly right.
suggesting here is rocks and trees are both natural peril. I think we gotta spend this to mitigate that. I know it's just one road, but to me it makes sense.
Yeah. I got there.
Okay. Everybody else good with that?
Sure.
Tar, good. Tar. Various drainage improvements, so that's slightly an increase from the general fund. But again, Tom's team, I think, has done an outstanding job of getting out ahead of the paving season and saving us a lot of money in the long run and doing a damn good job. I mean, we all drive around and see the various drainage improvements that have been made. Not only, I mean, when do you get excited about drains, but when you look at some of them, you've done a really nice job, and I think people have appreciated that. There's something visual that people can tie to. Personal lift. I think you made the case, at least to me, that there's some savings in the future for additional projects and safety, right? I mean, you're keeping your guys safe.
Yeah, especially if we're not doing it in the most
Right.
safe
Mm-hmm.
way right now. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scaffold.
No, if it can save us, and
Yeah.
do it our own work.
Pickup truck is tar. John Deere makes sense, right down at the bottom of the page of 156.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got WPCA. We're good with all those, I assume.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't want to talk about the polymer pumps, right?
Nope.
Yeah, I learned.
Wendy wants a
I
tour.
know enough.
I think we did get we did get the board and you guys talking about grit though, right? That was a good win.
They had been talking about it.
All right, you see, there it is.
Smiling like great, he's excited.
Is there anything on the bottom of page 157 that anybody objects to?
So to clarify, we did take the cart path and the
Yep.
T and put those
Moved it.
towards the CIP, the golf course irrigation, right?
Correct. So the 3 SF projects? Yep.
Right,
Amy, you already captured those?
okay.
All right.
And you can socialize that amongst the committee, right?
What?
Socialize why we had to do that to get them,
I think everybody, yeah.
okay?
It's
All
my
right.
idea. I'll put that-
Right, well, they're not coming, there's no pitchforks coming, and torches coming back from Jerry Wetchen, right?
They'll-
Okay.
Everybody understands what the greater good is.
Thank you. Jared, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right. So, Amy, is it fair for you to come on Wednesday with the updated schedules and ARPA schedules based on everything we just did? I don't think we need to wait and go through all that all right now. But we're going to finish. I mean, we'll need the motions prepared and everything else. But if everybody could reflect on those, and again, time is not necessarily a good thing for the 6 of us, but just make sure everybody's good with that. And if you have issues, please get that to the finance director before we meet, because it takes these guys a ton of time to do the motions for capital and such.
Yeah,
So
yes.
it would be helpful from
Yes.
a town staff standpoint if we could, and again, it's okay if you change your mind, but just let them know so that we can have that conversation up front and they can craft the motion.
Do we need to do service improvements?
We're gonna,
Well, we're almost at 8 o'clock. That's the question we want to do.
Well, we could save those, but I thought, I don't know if we have rolled through them yet.
So if the first selectwoman would permit. Go ahead.
Well, one thing I wanted to get, there was one, was never confirmed the Chamber of Commerce. I want to just go back to there, and I've said I wanted to keep them level funded.
Oh, so you're talking about operating budget
I
again?
just wanted to go back to that. We had kept everybody else level funded.
269.
Page
What number is it?
16,
16, that's a
they asked for a
community.
double increase.
16?
16. Oh,
Yeah,
page
I think that Cambridge should stay level funded.
And as the information found that Granby currently isn't giving them any money. So let's
All the more
wait
reason.
and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm fine keeping them level funded.
So we basically kept everybody, other than Interval House,
Yeah.
level.
And we
funded.
went up on Farmington Valley VNA, I thought, to 44.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I circled 40.
We did change them to 44.
Where did we land on community media?
No,
The 44, I don't think you guys did.
yeah, I thought we kept it at 40.
Did we?
Thank you, that's what,
40 because they received the 10,000.
Yes.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. And we were gonna we told them to send the 44 in next year.
Point of making the 10,000.
Okay.
Huh?
You made a big point of the 10,000.
Amy, thanks for keeping us honest.
Okay, I had
Oh,
44 written down.
I forgot about that.
Where was we?
This is the problem with time, we forget. I'm not in favor of increasing Simsbury community media either. I think we should.
no, we said we're keeping
yeah.
them all,
All right, okay.
except for Interval House.
All right.
Oh, okay, that was in the service improvements.
All right,
With the 150 for the, yeah, where is the 150 for the?
That's on page 16.
150
Because
for what?
we
On
didn't
the
confirm
ambulance?
that either.
That got moved to ARPA.
ARPA. Yeah, we
But
moved it.
we confirm that we were doing it?
I think
We said,
general, the
we
group
had
was yes.
consensus, but we didn't want to vote on it, but we still have consensus is what we're saying.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, same, but I,
It's the generators that's for the fire that we
We do not
left to
have
the end,
consensus on the
right?
generators,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm thinking about page 269, I guess.
Yeah, 269. All right. So the town manager has given us the priority that she recommends, right? But the list is inclusive of all of the requests. Did we agree on 4,000 for DEI, Wendy? Was that what we did?
Yes.
Okay, so that's already off this, so we're all set there. Did we agree to Simsbury Celebrates increase as well?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're off that, so we're good there. We agreed to the book bike, right? Outreach
Yes.
program.
Mm-hmm.
We agreed to the reference materials, right?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
The children's program.
I don't have Simsbury Celebrates, I don't have the book bike.
So the book bike was part of the discussion we had with Lisa when we were talking about when we cut the vending machine. We were given back in the operating budget. The book bike's ARPA, but the reference materials were operating, right? That's operating, yeah.
And then we added the 4,250 and the 2,000, correct? In addition.
Yeah,
What, 2,000?
yeah.
Which 2,000?
Children's ones for.
Oh, that's below the
Children's
line.
room.
Thank you, yeah. The conferences for education.
Yes, those two.
Right.
Oh, yes.
The
yes,
conferences,
yes,
Those
yeah.
two
Yeah.
were below.
The broccoli.
Yeah. So Amy, the operating budget for the library is up 4,500 for the teen reference and then up 2K for conferences and education. That was the wish list item that Tom wrote down.
And the 40.
That's, yeah.
There are 4 things.
Good
here
Lord,
from
quit while
library.
you're ahead.
No, I think we did agree to.
Yeah, we did.
Those-
You're right.
Yeah.
All 3 items. Okay.
4. Teen reference
4,
materials,
yes.
the book right summer outreach, but that's ARPA.
That's ARPA, right. So let's just focus on operating right now.
Got it.
Those
I'm
are 3,
just-
there's 3 operating changes.
Yep, yep.
Do we have any information back on the Board of Ed contracting out for the,
Yeah, they cut that.
the mechanical?
Board of Ed had to cut that.
For the what?
So we did get the $18,000 back, that was confirmed, but, since the Board of Finance requested that they cut their budget, that position has been cut from the Board of Ed budget.
Which position?
Magic mechanic.
Shared with Board of Ed, so we're killing
We
that.
can't kill,
Yeah,
we can't do
can't
it.
carry.
All right, so we'll
No.
kill that.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, that's on top. How about the catering, make catering a full-time. Catering, I'm sorry, I knew that.
And that's coming out of the fund, right? So there's no
I'm
reason not to
totally
do
in
that.
favor of that.
I'm fine with that.
I had one question on that.
Actually, the one that wanted to get out of here early.
No, I just wanted to use the time efficiently. That doesn't mean getting out early. I just had one, Amy, when you're, this is not about voting up and down on Caitlin's. Help me understand, when you look at the personnel, the request form, like for example, page, where's Caitlin on there? She is 274. Okay, just help me understand. I'll let you guys get there. 274.
Is there a question?
Okay, you see line item 10B4 is medical insurance at 10.5. When you look at, I don't want to make a demographic assumption here, but you look at one of Tom's folks, it's a full-time parks maintainer. That individual 10B4 is at $34,000.
I want to speak for everybody, but I think it's because it's where she's projected. She's not married, single.
So you are making a
no kids.
demographic assumption when you're modeling that.
We would do that with anybody, because if you hired me and I didn't have a family, actually, you're not paying me for insurance, I take the waiver, but but you could hire any department head or anybody, that person could be single or they could have a family.
Right, but it's easily that this budget line item will go up by $20,000 next year. If it is based upon that modeling, and that individual gets married and has a child, it can go up 20,000.
I mean,
That can happen with any.
That's all, I'm just trying to understand, that's how it's
not
done,
real.
that's why it's done.
That can happen with any employee.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, just want to make sure it's not a discrepancy, I said education, I'm just trying to understand the process.
All right,
That's
it's a
all.
fair point, but I think, we got enough flow built into it that, yeah, we're good. Building official,
George made a case for that, and it sounded like it was a revenue generator.
Yeah, I can't imagine how
well,
we
yeah, it's
don't.
continuity, right?
I think we
Right.
do
I
that.
mean, George made the point that we could do 3,
Yeah.
and we have a half.
All right, so we're, at this point, supportive of putting that back in? Or putting it in? Amy, do you have that?
It wasn't taken out. It was already built in.
To the budget?
We've always budgeted their full salary. You're basically foregoing the revenue.
It was,
That's
remember
right, that's
the
right, that's
we're
right. Yeah,
foregoing
thank
it,
you,
yeah.
thank you.
Set.
Yep, next,
Yeah.
okay. All right, anybody have any impassioned arguments that are under 2 minutes for anything else?
Well, we didn't talk about the parks maintainer position. Did we say we're not doing that?
Nope, that's never, that
We haven't
never entered
talked
the
about
conversation.
I know.
That's the
Oh, and
question is, what
I'm
are-
asking what people are gonna do with that.
I'd like to keep that in for the time being.
So it's not in,
Put that in.
okay.
Yep, I would absolutely advocate for that. It's been asked for year over year since we've been here, and
What?
Put that in.
So if we put it in, we're already at a 6% increase, now we're going to 6.5 with everything we've done.
So one question, so what I would suggest, and I know Lisa won't like this, is I was thinking we weren't gonna add to our head count this year, given the year. I know the business outreach position has been vacant for 2 years, and I was looking at what of these are the most critical to the town of Simsbury. Not, because I don't see how we can add multiple positions this year. And I would consider that if there was a trade-off, which is the most important to the town.
Can I speak to that? If you're going to take away that position, you'll still need funds to cover staffing of the service desks, because right now we're using part-time staff to cover the service desks, and if you look at our budget, we're far overspent in that line. I mean, that position, that business and career center coordinator, staffs the service desk. So you're taking away staff to the service desk.
what's the full, you said you were, Lisa, I don't know how, as an individual she plays into it, but.
There's nobody in the role.
What's that?
There's nobody in the role currently.
Yeah, but so.
But we are paying people to staff the service desk.
No, I'm
Which we
saying
have
how
to
you
keep doing.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
we
So
would
I'm
have to keep
asking
doing.
Wendy, she made the point of how, in light of what Lisa thinks it would respond to it, that mean, so I don't know how, that's a board of finance, Lisa?
No, I was asking
Okay.
about this, Lisa.
Okay, but I mean, in light of, what is worrying you that we can't add personnel to the,
Because I don't know how much the taxes are gonna go up if we add personnel. Because we're already at a 5.6% increase without adding personnel.
okay,
So the taxes, so if we pass 0 budgets and no debt increase, right, the mill rate was 28.79. And the proposed budget coming in is 31 and change, right? So we are increasing taxes. It's not going to look like it from a mill rate standpoint, but the taxes are up from what they could have been if we did zeros across the line. Right, so, and then this is, so, and again, I'm not saying for or against, but any every basically 180,000 we put in is a 1% increase on the Board of Selectmen budget, or 200,000.
Yeah, so I don't know what the results of these things are.
So at the end of the day, so we're pushing with 99,000 plus the other things. I mean, we're pushing ourselves up, call it 0.6, 0.7 from what the town manager proposed, which is, we could do that, right? But my understanding is the Board of Finance has preemptively asked us to cut 300 from what the town manager suggested. So, which we can go in there and play
Does that
check.
include the bonding change?
So that may be,
calculation?
that might be
We don't know.
interesting to them, right? Is we cut 200,000+ there, so we're close to the 300.
But now
What
we're
about-
adding
What
on
about
top
what
of
we
it.
did with the pollinators?
That doesn't save us money, that's
Yeah,
capital.
No.
yeah.
Is there anything in the vacancy rate that we could pull out this year?
So, Amy, there was in the police budget, and Chief, don't get
We're gonna
mad,
talk about public
is,
data.
Yeah.
I think we ought to budget the historical number for that holiday pay, not the full number.
So the chief did an analysis on that, and I think, the deputy chief has the specifics. But, the projected for the end of this year for overtime is projected to be over, and we will use that holiday pay account to offset the overage in overtime.
So we should budget the overtime budget for the correct amount.
And we should increase it by about 20,000.
Okay. So we're talking about page 104, OT needs to go to 320,
Yeah.
okay? And then I'm suggesting, this is not police officers, and then I'm suggesting so the town manager's budget is 203. 2 years ago it was 130 for holiday pay. Current year is 140, so Amy's 150. Conservative enough?
The building official, so really it's.
I just,
Maintainer.
let me, when you're ready for that, Sean, I want to
Go
go
ahead,
back.
yeah.
Just with this whole, for my, philosophically on adding the staff. So if you look at, I think my rough math, but on Saturday, we were looking at nine ads, the personnel complement. That's a lot, okay? But that's, to me, somewhere in that 9 is either planning for the future or is trying to just keep your head above water for what we have right now, right? And that's 9. That's 9 as it is today. That's not 9 with that's just to meet the levels of service we have today. At some point, those 9 are going to come, and they could come 2 years from now. Could come all 9 at once because we're in some position where we need those people. I think we have to start incrementally taking some of these FTEs and adding them now. I know it's going to potentially increase taxes, but it's either going to increase taxes by 1% today for one body, or it's going to be by 9% for 5 bodies 2 or 3 years from now. We have to start building it. We haven't made material increases on our tax rates over the last couple of years. I mean, we've made incremental small ones, but it's a difficult decision. But these are going to add up, and there's going to be a point where there's a cliff. And the impact is going to be much bigger than it is today to start tackling each one of these, or 2 or 3 of them.
I agree. The challenge is do you feather it in with grand list growth, but we're not projecting enough grand list growth to pay for these. So, it's do you pay now and continue to pay, or do you wait and pay later and save people money? I mean, the Board of Finance has taken the tack. This is not why we make decisions, but they've taken the tack of only tax for what the current need is, right, and not look necessarily to the future. And that's why we are looking at 6%, right? That's the challenge, right? We could have feathered in 1 or 2, and we'd be talking about 2 or 3% right now if we had not done zeros for a number of years. And I'm not second guessing the decision, but that's where you're left with, right? So, I mean, I can get on board with it, but again, it's a challenge of we're playing chicken with the Board of Finance, and I don't want to lose control of our budget. And that's the danger if we don't send them.
To a certain extent, we have lost control of our budget because that's the structure we have right now with the Board of Finance.
Yes and no. They've respected our wishes in the past, with the exception of Meadowood. Right?
Last year, everything passed.
It did. I mean, they respected our wishes. They beat us up, but they let it through, right?
And I think someone has to be the bad guy in the equation to not let our budgets run out of control.
It's usually me.
But are there some smaller spots that maybe we could find somewhere, like could we pull 100,000 from the vacancy rate? Could we cut, across the board, we spend 150,000 on conferences. Could we cut that 30%? That doesn't really help the taxpayer. Certain departments need certain conferences and trainings more than others. Can we find maybe some little places?
Yeah, and I was just gonna add into the conversation about the, resources. We heard also tonight, and so I know Tom's been out of this position since 2020, right? Or is it 2020 this position was cut?
No, the maintenance position.
2010?
2006, 2007, we had a retirement,
Okay.
2 retirements that were backfilled.
Okay.
So we just got the one back a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you've added all these amenities, I'm gonna make my case real quick.
Yeah.
You've added all these amenities over the years, we got one back. This just restores us to where we were in 1999 when I started as a young pup. And I can promise you, we won't be back for any other asks.
So I did, a town like Farmington said that to keep their budget low, they had to cut staff. And the other thing that we heard the other night, which is why I was saying what's the most important ad if we were gonna add anybody, was that we heard that the police potentially are gonna need 3 and 3. So is a 1 officer there equal to adding the parks maintainer to the budget, the business resource center, or are we saying they're all important and we don't care what the taxes are? So I was trying to look at it at, which is the most important body to bring in. So that was just my perspective. So, people aren't concerned about increasing, the taxes and see what it looks like.
Well, I am concerned about raising taxes. I find that when you are running for office, everyone tells you they want to save money, and then you win, and then everyone shows you ways they want you to spend money. So I think that there is a push and pull. I think that this particular position, I think that the case has been made for it, that I'd like to see, for me, this is a higher priority item.
Which is what?
Which is putting the parks maintainer position in.
Higher priority.
Knowing that this, really brings Tom's team to a full complement.
So, I don't disagree, but then again, we know there's 6 coming for the police officers, right? So to me, that's a higher priority.
Yeah.
I agree, but that there's 6 coming, but they're not all coming at once.
But we
It's not
could-
possible. You just made a statement, we can't load the taxpayers.
Don't disagree, but the
Right.
whole
That-
philosophy of feathering it in, you hire
Correct.
one now,
That's
you
what I'm
hire
tr-
2 next year.
That's
and-
what I'm trying
We
to
heard
get
3
at.
last
The-
year,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Now, the problem is these folks are down, down staff, which is exacerbating over time. Their sergeant challenges, again, great sergeants, but again, we're thin in that space. That's contributing to cost. So, again, we can make an impassioned case for every single department, right? But the biggest need is in the police department. If we half believe that study, it's 3, right? We haven't even seen it yet, but,
I guess this is more of a question for Amy, but to what extent can we budget a vacancy rate, knowing that we could create another position this year, but there will likely not be a full complement of officers?
So I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. Like, we have $200,000 right now as a vacancy rate. We could increase it if you wanted to. We've looked at the data from the most recent year, and it supports the 200,000.
Okay. I want to do it responsibly if we do it.
so to that end, I feel like it supports more than that, though. We have more than 2 officers worth of vacancy in the town right now. We have the business coordinator vacancy. Forget the overtime offsets, just purely on that. So whatever that position is, 75,000, right? We're down how many officers right now? 2?
2.
And we were basically for the whole calendar year. That's 250,000, right?
I can take a look. We did the analysis. I don't know it off the top of my head per department, but.
Yeah, we should look at that, right? Because again, I feel like it's closer to 300 with my bad math.
You're down staff all year.
Right. Now again, I don't want to.
But the question is even higher than.
Basically, everybody's down a person, so we probably have a 500,000. But again, I also don't want to blow all of our year-end savings, which we're counting on to shore up the
Right.
health fund. So we need to be careful with what we do here, right? That's why we went conservative with 200. Well, there's that too, yeah. Well, that comes out of the salary.
It's still gonna hit
But one salary stops, another one starts. So
Okay,
we should be
got it,
neutral.
got it,
We
got
should
it.
be neutral there.
Right, that's true.
So Amy, can you get us, better is the wrong word, but I don't, closer to what, yeah, what the actual is for Wednesday? Okay. I think you heard a lot of perspective. Maybe, again, when we get to the final, can you model up the budget for Wednesday with the way we just talked about? We added a bunch of stuff, and then we can,
Yeah,
Take
can
it
we
out.
just discuss Simsbury Celebrates for a second? What number did you want to add to that? Was it the TM recommended or was it the full?
What's that?
yes,
3,300?
sure.
Yeah.
What was that number?
All right, so then I have an increase for the Hartford Interval House of 2,500, the DEI for 4,000, the increase to the library children's program expenditures for 4,250, the teen reference materials for 4,500, the library conferences and education for 2,000, the Simsbury Celebrates 3,300, and then the parks maintainer for the 99,569.
Amy, the only thing I might have misheard you, for Interval House, we had said 5,000, I believe.
So it was 5,000 in total as an increase.
Oh, got it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, throw in a police officer as well, from a modeling standpoint, please.
And not take out any positions.
And not take out any positions. Yeah. Yeah. You want a truck driver? Throw in a truck driver too.
Well, we know we're not doing all four.
right.
Like, I just want to say that, right? I'm going to say,
But I
we're
want
not
everybody-
hiring 4 people.
We're not, but let's-
From my perspective.
But let's leave the library position, let's add 3 staff, and let's see what that looks like to start with all the others
And
on
then we
Wednesday.
can
And we can start
back
from there,
out. Yeah,
right? And then we can have a priority discussion,
yeah.
and we end up with none, we end up with all, we end up with, but let's have that discussion.
I think that's smart, and we can see it.
Driver, more so than truck driver, is critical cost,
Sure.
because it has the ability to help in both areas.
Cost savings.
Mechanic driver,
The
yeah.
ability, if we hire, every time we hire more staff, they
Yep.
have more vehicles, they have more things, that public works maintains for them.
Okay.
As departments grow, we support them. And we have not grown in a long time.
Yeah, but,
Andrew, anyone
But-
else for them?
yeah, it was
No,
supposed
we're
to
not
be,
gonna do that.
but it was supposed to be a shared service.
It was supposed to be.
Was a selling point of the position.
I
So
agree.
if we're not doing that, to me, it's not a selling point anymore to fill the position.
But what Tom is saying is he needs that
I know he
position.
needs
We,
that.
we
more
brought
than
on
truck
the
driver.
idea of bringing the Board of Ed to make it more palatable. But if you look even now, our current workload, we should have 4.8 mechanics. We have 2.5.
So that's your highest priority, so if we're
That's
gonna
correct.
add that position, that's the one you want.
And just want to make that clear,
Just
then the other
modeling
one
it
that we
for
didn't talk
I have a
about
couple more modeling.
is under the engineering and the consulting services to have the ability to have the flexibility that we can go after more of these grants.
Okay.
Right now, we've never had more projects in engineering that are being run for the next 3 years. And when we have more and more grant opportunities, we get to the point of not being able to chase after them. It takes a huge effort to get a grant done in 3 weeks.
All those projects are
Is it?
cost in the future.
Is it too much work? If it is, just say this because I don't want to put much work, but is it possible to see what we have for vacancies across the departments and how long those positions have been vacant?
As of now,
Mhm.
I can ask HR.
Okay, that'll be good, because the assistant town planner has been gone for a while, although we're getting one.
I mean, we need one of those,
Yeah.
I know we need one, but we haven't had one for a few months. I don't know what that does.
All right.
So, can I add this to the conversation? So, I know we're gonna evaluate the potential positions maybe, but a couple things I was thinking, not thinking we were adding positions as things we could give to the departments to offset some help that were in the below the line table. One was, Tom had mentioned the work study plan for all of Public Works was a $40,000 cost. So if we did not give this position, he had 2 positions, potential positions next year. So would doing the study help us figure out what the right amount of people would be in that department at a low cost rather than hiring that? So that's one thing I wouldn't mind having an idea to offset if we're not gonna add the person, right? If we're adding the person, screwed, no work study. And then the other thing for the police department, I asked Chief Bolter was if we were not to fund a new officer, there is a need here for a part-time police clerk, which he said would really help out the department for lower cost, right, to make somebody more hours.
Right, it's one for a full-time clerk and then one.
Right, so I'm ignoring the full-time. I'm looking at the part-time as just something we could also, if we're not gonna be able to add an officer, we could potentially at least add some service to give you some help.
So not the 0.1 to the current clerk, an
No,
additional.
part-time clerk? Is
Yeah,
that what
there's
you're
a
saying?
line
Yeah, I
item
think
12.
I don't have your book.
It's the 0.1.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the 0.1. Yeah, and the only question I had on that was, and I didn't, it might have been on the list, was if it hits a benefit cost, then what does that do? Does it make it, like a full-time person, then, we don't do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Chief and Jenna, is the additional sergeant your guys' top priority? Or is it the officer? Like which one, if we're gonna do one, which one's the one? I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to answer for him right now, but I mean, they're both obviously very important positions.
Yeah.
But, so
The sergeant helps you with some of the
staffing
OT
as
stuff
well
and the
as,
staffing,
right.
right? I mean, it gives you some flexibility there.
And you have to do one to get the other though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're combined. By hiring a patrol officer, it allows us
Right.
to,
Elevate.
So I'm looking at.
I'm like, blah, blah, blah.
So let me-
Give someone a promotion.
So let me change this
Promote.
and make it real easy. Do you want me to put a $1.53 in or a $1.36?
$1.53.
Because a $1.53 is the
Yeah.
sergeant
Yes.
idea.
Right.
$1.36 is just the sworn officer traffic idea.
But if
right?
we have to back off the buck, if we have to
So-
back down,
so-
if it makes a big difference.
Where do you want us to start, right? You want us to start at that. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to play a game here, but it's important that we see what is the, where are we gonna end up?
That's the cost modeling.
Right.
It's important, and then again, this gives us a starting point, and then we have to, and what I would ask the six of us is, some of us have had some ideas for where we might have some savings. Let's save everybody tonight and send those to the finance director if you have them with the line item in the page, please. And then if you have additional cuts that you're thinking of, and then again, any additional additions, let's get that to Amy for Wednesday, and then we can hit the ground running on a pretty quick model.
Yep.
And then, again, also be thinking about where do you want to be, right? So it's the time to think about where do we want the mill rate. We've done our priorities, we've done our evaluation, we've used our pools of money. Where are we comfortable being? Do we want to be 6? Do we want to be 4? Do we not care? And I think philosophically, we're all in a different place. But think about what's your low, what's your high, and then again, then we figure out the compromise when we get the worksheet up there. Is that fair?
Yeah.
That end the budget discussion for tonight?
Let's see the.
Sure, yeah.
You're boss.
No, I don't know how it impacts until I see it. So I
I'm the
can't
same
say
way
w-
with-
I think that's
I
where
don't
we'll
know what
spend
my
our time.
range is until I see.
Right,
the
you're
But in
saying
your- but in your head, I mean,
I
again-
can't do it in my head. I don't know what I'm doing.
I guess philosophically, are you a 0 to 2? Are you
0
a-
to
are
2
you
what?
a-
Increase in the
Percent
mill
increase.
rate?
Percent
Taxes.
increase
In
in
taxes.
taxes.
Taxes on our budget. Forget
Okay.
the overall budget's gonna happen the way that's gonna happen. What is the Board of Selectmen budget that you can pass to get behind, regardless of what the Board of Finance may do on the resulting mill rate?
Well, we knew like our actual growth in the grand list was what, 2.5?
3.
Right.
So
That's a starting
that's
place
a
for me.
starting point,
Cost of
right.
living in the Farmington Valley is what, 6 or 7, right? So the seniors are getting a 8 or 9% increase in Social Security, so they can still buy their $3 boxes of pasta at Fitzgerald's. So, all of that comes into it, right? Because when the COLA is 0, we're supposed to be 0.
But everybody's still facing energy cost increases just like we are.
Yep.
Inflation, multiple
Agreed.
factors, so.
But it's also, it costs more money to run the ship too.
Yeah, and we have people that are facing extraordinary cost increases, and we also have people who are expecting extraordinary service delivery.
And
We can go round and round for 3 more hours and we
Okay.
need to-
So, all right. So
I have one
guess
quick question, just overall, maybe Sean, you could historic, and Amy, we have lots of fantastic small trusts, Eldon, Eno, there's all these different names and all that. And over the years, we've taken from them to do certain things, street lights, cupola, all that stuff. Who's responsible to watching and seeing if those are still viable or not, and they're living by the tenets of the trust for fund balance and stuff?
So we take a look at them during the budget process to see if there's any that we can use.
I get that part,
For
but.
for Belden, we run our budget requests by the trustees, and they take a look to see if they're amenable to what we've requested. The other smaller ones, there's not a ton of money in them, so we just use them as we can, as it comes up. There's no formal trustees with those.
They're sort of dissolved as far as the.
I mean, they're just not,
Okay.
yeah, either it's too restricted or there's just not a lot of money in them.
Thank you, okay. So I would never want to just be pulling, just pulling for them.
Pulling restricted funds and using it.
And not, and not, you know.
Right, that's
So
not good.
I'm looking for a motion to move to executive session with the Board of Selectmen and Attorney Mike Harrington. Oh,
And Bob.
and Bob D.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Bathroom break.